I know we're waiting on council. As soon as council shows up, we'll get started. I don't believe we need council to get started on the first item, so we can go ahead and get started. Before I call the meeting to order, I do want to announce that some committee members, staff, and the public are attending remotely via Zoom as well as on site. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. When speaking, please speak directly into a microphone to ensure everyone listening is able to hear your comments and to ensure a clear record is made. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak so the public that is observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and its current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of this meeting. The public may also indicate their intent to provide remote public comment by contacting the clerk's office by noon on the day of the meeting. The public will also have the opportunity to provide brief comments either by telephone or via Zoom from the fifth floor conference room of the municipal office building. Public comment will be allowed during each agenda item, and please be mindful that comments should be limited to the item at hand and per the commission rules of procedure. They should not include any rude or derogatory remarks, reflections as to integrity, abusive comments, and statements as to the motives and personalities. I will now call this meeting of the Economic Development and Finance Standing Committee for January 13th, 2025 to order, and I'll ask the clerk to please call roll.
Roll call. Wakes.
Present.
Lopez.
Here.
Burns.
Here.
Stites. Townsend.
Here.
Burrows.
Here. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, committee. I'll ask the clerk if there are any revisions to tonight's agenda.
There are no revisions.
Thank you. I do recognize that we have addressed two of the items that were originally on the agenda. We addressed those last week in full commission, so they are no longer on the agenda. That was item 4.7 and 4.8. I will now bring your attention to the first item of committee this evening, which is the approval of minutes from our March 4th, 2024 meeting. If you've had a chance to review, I would entertain a motion for approval.
Move the approval.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of March 4th, 2024. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Wakes.
Aye.
Lopez.
Aye.
Burns. Stites. Townsend.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. That takes us to committee to item number 1. It's a resolution amending our 2024 Parks and Recreation Department budget. I'll recognize Angel Ferrara and our Parks and Recs Director for presentation and remarks. As soon as she gets situated, we'll begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So tonight we do have this item on the agenda. I am going to turn it over to our park manager, Vinny Bellacci, to walk us through, kind of give a background and present the resolution that's before you tonight.
Thank you. Vince Bellacci, Manager of Parks. So the resolution before you is in regard to some damages that were sustained at Wyandotte County Lake on May 19th. So if you remember, we had a pretty severe windstorm, which caused some extreme wind damage and trees to fall on the marina and destroyed a covered dock and also caused damage to wooden dock out there as well. So we got some estimates for that. The roof damage at the marina was extensive. We had 2 trees through that roof and broken joists and such. So with the estimates of that to replace the entire roof along with the joists inside there that are structural. Also, when we had dock company come out and look at the wooden docks that had broken free from the bank, it was advised that essentially all of our wooden docks out there did not have proper anchors. So we need new cabling and new anchors for those wooden docks. So the ask tonight on the resolution is to utilize the reserve funds, which would be 2024 reserve funds. And the total for that would be 184,179. So that's 101 for the marina repair and 82 for the dock cabling and anchors for that. So a total of 184, 179, and that would leave 15,821 in the reserves. And again, those are 2024 reserve funds.
Committee questions? Commissioner Lopez?
You said 1581 and the reserves like
15,821.
What percentage of the budget is that? At what level is the reserve? 10%, 20%? Do we know? Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Townsend?
Good evening to one of my favorite departments. All of them are favorite, but you're here right now, so you're the most favorite. With regard to alternatives, if we do not expend this money, these are 2024 reserves, right? What would be the other option, or what would we lose out on? You know, if you could explain what the significance of not repairing this would be.
Yeah, so I'd say this repair is very needed. We're actually pretty fortunate to have made it through this snowstorm with a temporary repair job that staff did. It's testament to the great work that they do. So we do just have a temporary solution in place right now. So it needs a full repair. If we're unable to do that, I think, you know, we're kind of at the liberty of the temporary repair and hopefully that holding on. But I know at the end of the season, it did start to leak a little bit, and, you know, we're trying to just do the best we can so there's not mold and other things that start kind of growing on the roof and in the building. So as far as solutions for funding, you know, if that was your question, kind of tried to see if we had some additional funds in the budget to do so, and we don't. That's why we're here requesting approval to utilize reserves.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood. What did you say? You're saying there have been temporary repairs to the roof?
Yeah, staff, Vinny can talk more about that. We did utilize some tarping and some different things to make a temporary repair to try to get us through till we could get some estimates, identify what we could do as far as funding, then realized utilizing and requesting reserves was an option, which brings us here tonight.
And you said a tarp was used in lieu of that. What would be the expected useful life or practicality of continuing to use that?
That's extremely temporary. Honestly, we're surprised it lasted this long without major leaks or anything. Like Angel said, late in the season, we did have some water starting to seep in under the tarp, but we were most concerned, obviously, with a heavy snowfall, which we just got. And that was our major concern, is going into winter with this, a temporary repair, hole in the roof, broken joists, and getting a heavy snowfall. So it did hold up, but we don't know how long that can last. But yeah, the tarp situation is extremely temporary.
What about anything that might have been done to the dock, or was anything done to the dock in terms of temporary repairs? And what's expected life on that? What kind of activities may be impacted that we can or can't? It's been a while since I've been to Christmas in July, but I'm sure there are other people who want to use it for fishing or whatever, you know. My yacht's in the shop right now, but, you know, let me know what's going on out there with that.
My yacht is also in the dock, or in the repair shop. So on the docks, most of them now, so when they were originally installed, they did have cables going to concrete anchors. And over time, those cables erode and break. And now most of them have what is called mud poles. So it's just a long, like a 20-foot pole that goes in the ground of the lake, but with a high wind, especially the ones that are out in the cove with high winds, it'll just bend that mud pole over, and the dock will come loose. So they really do need the anchors with the cabling on there.
Okay. What other types of uses, if we've had to make uses before of the reserve funds? Maybe I need to back up. Have you ever in the past couple of years had to go into the reserves?
Commissioner Townsend, could you pull your microphone up closer? We're having difficulty hearing you up here.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
There
That
we go.
better?
Thank you.
Okay, how far do I need to go back? You know, my yacht's in the shop, so I just asked staff, in past years, what have we, if at all, used reserve park funds for?
I would have to get a little bit more information on that, but I can say in the past 3 years, at least since I've been as director, we have not come before the commission seeking approval or authorization to utilize reserves. But I can do a little bit more research to see maybe in the past 5 to 10 what we've done or the department has done, if anything.
Thank you. Well, it just seems to me, I asked that question because it seems to me as with the reserves of the general fund, this would be the type of thing that would be an appropriate use for the funds. And the alternatives that you and Mr. Velazquez talked about didn't sound like that would be a viable long-term benefit to us. So I have no more questions. I would move to approve.
Before I accept the motion, I think we have some more questions. Commissioner Stites?
It's District 7. So what I would say is, we're not in the business of putting a tarp on a roof and keeping it, to who knows how long, and mold starts to happen. We wouldn't do that on our own home, and we're not going to do it on a government facility that we own, especially one of our parks departments. So I appreciate what you guys have done to preserve it and get it to this position where we're at. That's exactly what reserve funds are for. So whenever there is a catastrophic event or something gets damaged or we need that money, that's why it's there for reserve. And I will second the motion. Thank you.
Mr. Wakes?
The question was, because you never mentioned it, safety concerns of trying to utilize those things under their current condition, and being saying that the ones that we're using now are out of date. I'm sure there are probably some safety concerns, and would you elaborate on those if you have that information?
Safety concerns on the docks, the roof, or the docks? Okay, yeah, it's kind of like Vinny was mentioning, even with the storm, we had a few of the docks break loose. And so after further inspection, when we did have the contractor out there, we had them inspect all the docks and just really identified some areas that were either lacking proper security with cabling or just really were in need of repair. So as we went through this, we thought it was a good time, since we were going in, to just be able to address that at the same time.
Commissioner Burns?
Obviously, no one anticipated this storm to happen. It is one of the crown jewels here in Wyandotte County, and I'd like the record to show that it is in Commissioner Kane's district. And I think there's been.
Thank you. Before I accept a motion, I do want to make sure everybody's had a chance to run through the agenda as we were supposed to do it. I do have a question. Insurance. Is there a reason why we're not looking at an insurance fund?
Yep, so we did look at insurance for all the damage that was done out there. So we coordinated with Dave Wimberly. He is over the insurance for the organization. And so the deductible for this particular situation with the facilities involved was about $100,000. So the marina quote coming in at over $101,000, we kind of made the decision it wasn't worth putting the claim in. Furthermore, I know that there's the question about the cabling and how come that couldn't be folded into the total cost of the repairs that were needed. And Vinny, you want to kind of describe that? I think it's one of the docks broke loose at the May 19th storm. And then a week later, we had kind of another mini storm where another dock broke loose. So it was two separate situations. And so was it B dock that was on the May 19th storm, or I'll kind of let you explain from there.
Yeah, so it was G dock, which is one of the wooden docks that broke free on the May 19th storm. Then the following weekend, it was B dock. So when we're looking at insurance and trying to combine everything in one storm, we would have only had one of the wooden docks, and obviously all the other ones that are in need of the cabling and weights wouldn't be a insurance claim, because there was no true damage to them, although they do need the cabling and anchors.
So I would beg to say that you would have two different occurrences because it happened at two different times. But that's not to say you couldn't make a claim for the most damage that was done on whichever storm caused the most damage, and then utilize a reserve fund to address other issues that may need to be addressed. I know I talked to Angel early on in reference to if there's things that need to be fixed at this time, to identify them so that we don't have to go back into the budget 6 months down the road come spring and say, we may have missed this, but we're going to need additional dollars. And I do hope that you took that request seriously to look at those issues so that we are assured that this will cover the costs and not have to have us go out and de-engineer to re-engineer once again to duplicate a repair or a fix to the docks. That was just a concern I may have had. I do know that two separate incidents, two separate claims, that if there's one claim that goes over our deductible, then it would make sense. And in my opinion, that's what you have insurance for. Utilize it, fix the repairs under the insurance claim, pull less money out of the reserves unless you really feel those reserves are necessary to up the game in that pulling out the money from reserves to fix additional repairs while they are there fixing what they're fixing. So
Yes, and I'll just respond to that. I did take that information back after you posed that question to staff. And so that kind of is the approach we're taking with the cabling. You know, we're replacing all the docks at one time. I think that's 12 docks instead of just the two. And then also reevaluating, you know, kind of adding to that list. I think we can all agree there's probably a long list of needs out at the lake and really all of our parks. But with the, between the total of the marina roof and then also the cabling, it would leave 15,000 in the reserve. So of course that is some money in there, but you know, just needing a little bit more time, maybe just to develop what that could have been spent on, but definitely something we're thinking of moving forward, just trying to be proactive. So if this does arise, you know, we've got a list of things ready to go.
okay. All right. Commissioner Lopez?
Yeah, I was just thinking back in May 19th, and I was looking it up too, but there was, I think Governor Laura issued a verbal state of a disaster emergency. And is there, I think FEMA was doing something too, but is it, like, is there any FEMA money or state money that we're going to get for this too that would help? Or are we past that timeline or?
Yeah, we did work with Matt May and Emergency Management on that and identified, because we had a lot of tree damage in there that did fall under that. I cannot quote him right off the top of my head, but there was a reason why the building did not fall under that. But yes, we did look into the FEMA route.
Well, if there's tree damage from windstorm on a building, that would cover a lot of, that we should get some kind of funding for that.
There's different categories in those FEMA claims.
Right, I understand. I mean, like when we do insurance work and there's storm damage and there's what the insurance companies only pay so much to get a tree off of a building. And then they also pay for the building, whatever is damaged from the storm. But I didn't know what.
Yeah, I think we didn't have enough under, I believe it's category D when it comes to structures and buildings, and I don't think we had enough structure damage to meet the threshold of that.
Oh, maybe at the end of the day, I mean, you just need to sharpen our pencil harder on that, or?
Well, I don't know if we want to do that with.
I'm
FEMA.
just asking, not asking, I'm just asking. Okay.
Any-
It was explored.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll ask clerk if there are any comments from the public.
No
Mr.
comments
Chair?
were received.
I think Shelley, our CFO, was able to come up with an answer for the question you had about what percentage of reserves that was for our overall budget.
Oh, the percentage.
23%.
Okay, so your reserves are healthy. And as was stated earlier, that's what the reserves are for. I just wanted to ensure that it will be 23% now or 23% after the withdrawal? After the
Now
withdrawal?
in for 2024, correct? As of year end.
Okay, so go ahead.
Oh, no, that, I'm just telephoning, sorry.
The reserves are healthy, so it's good to see that. I agree that that's what they're for. No comments from the public. I'll ask the clerk if there are any hands raised by the public online who wish to speak.
There are no hands raised online.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this item? Let the record show no one step forward. Committee, I will now entertain a motion for approval of the resolution.
There is a motion on the table with a second from Townsend.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I didn't recognize the motion because I needed to get through the agenda, so I want to ensure just that the fact that I didn't recognize the motion, I would recognize it now. We have a procedure we need to go through so that we make sure that all the public gets a chance to participate in the discussion. So if Commissioner Townsend, if you would we'll move forward this time with the motion having been there, but I would really like to hold all motions until we get through the public portion of the agenda and then go with the motions.
If it would be easier for the record, I'd be happy to restate the motion. So I move to accept the request as presented for the use of the reserve funds.
I'd second.
Thank you, committee. Just want to ensure that we're doing this thing properly. We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call, Wakes,
Aye.
Lopez,
Aye.
Burns,
Aye.
Stites, Townsend,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, committee. Thank you, Angel. Mr. Velazzi, appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Committee, that takes us to item number 2 this evening. It's an ordinance approving execution of the second amended and restated Star Bond project plan and amended and restated development agreement for the American Royal. It is this Northwest Speedway Star Bond District and Star Bond Financing Project Plan authorizing and approving execution of the American Royal amended and restated development agreement.
Thank you, Chairman Burrows and members of the committee. Chelsea Chisholm, Economic Development Director. So this evening, we've got 3 different items for the American Royal Project. We've got an ordinance for the committee's consideration that would approve the second amended and restated Star Bond Project Plan, and the amended and restated development agreement. The next item is a resolution setting forth public hearing for the creation of a community improvement district. The third item is a resolution amending the resolution of intent. So here tonight, I have Jackie McClaskey with American Royal and her outside counsel, Kevin Lee with Pulsinelli. They're going to lead off with the presentation. We also have Todd LaSala here with Stinson, who is available to answer some more detailed questions. So we'll let Jackie and Kevin begin, and then happy to stand for any questions at any point.
Good evening. I am not sure that there has ever been any person who has sat before this committee that is more excited to be here than I am tonight. We have been waiting for this night to bring the next steps in the American Royal Project for quite a while. I told Kevin as we were waiting that the first meeting that I sat in with a representative of the unified government to talk about this project was in December of 2014. So it has been a long time coming. There has been a lot of effort and a lot of partnerships created as we work towards this project, and we're very excited to be seeing it come to fruition. For those of you that are highly familiar with the project already, some of the things I'm going to share over the first couple minutes are probably things that you already know, but for some of you who are a little less familiar with the project, I want to get you up to speed. The American Royals started 125 years ago. This past year, we celebrated our 125th anniversary and are now we now are 125 as we move into the 2025 year. American Royal started as a Hereford show, and we have added different components. If you don't know, Hereford are cattle, started as a cattle show, and we've added horse shows and barbecues and rodeos, but all of those things have always been about the concept of championing food and agriculture to the public, telling the story of the greatest industry, the largest industry in the state of Kansas and the state of Missouri, and an industry that is obviously critical not only to the country and the globe, to people who don't always necessarily understand it. And that educational component is really what drives us. Our mission is to be the nation's leader for food and agricultural education, events, and engagement. So as my good friend Todd likes to say, this is not just about more butts and seats at a rodeo. It's really a much bigger vision of telling the story of food and agriculture, and to be able to do that at the level that we would like requires a new home and new facilities. So we are building a 1 million square foot food and agriculture education center. In that education center, we are going to host a large number of events, which is one avenue for which we tell those stories. We're also going to host educational programs. We're also going to host the kind of events that bring people in who may not even know that they're interested in food and agriculture, but by coming to our facility, they learn about that story. And all of those things are going to bring people here to the Kansas City region, specifically into Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas. Right now, our events in 2023 attracted over 400,000 attendee days. You might say, well, Jackie, 2024 is over, but we're still moving numbers. I'm still getting event reports. So we'll hopefully have those numbers done by the time we get to come, assuming we get to go before the full commission. But when you think about that 400,000, that's what we do today. That's with a limited number of days in a rental space that we are now under contract for. So when you think about a 1 million square foot space and the fact that we can program it every day of the year, we are looking over the first 20 years, the 20 years of the Star Bond project, an average of over 2 million visitors. You can look at our numbers. I think the numbers some of you have heard me talk about is 2.6, but the third-party study says between 2.1 and 2.3 million visitors to the region that will come because of us building this facility. And currently, American Royal events draw people from all 50 states. And I realized the other day that when I said that maybe that number isn't as compelling to some people because they think, well, maybe it's just one person came from California or just one person came from Virginia. But across our 4 biggest events, over half of the people who come do not come from Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, or Oklahoma. So when you really think about what we're doing, we are drawing people from truly outside of the Midwest to events and activities hosted at the American Royal. When you think about all of those people, what are they going to do? They're going to come here. They usually come here as multi-generations. Many of the events might have 3 generations. There might be kids in the show ring, their parents are with them and their grandparents come to watch. And so they spend money at all different types of places. And one of the things, again, that our study and the third-party study conducted by the state shows is that they're going to spend a decent amount of money when they're here. Average sales are expected to be over 330 million. And both, again, our internal study and the external study both say that only about 50% of those funds are going to be spent within what we have identified as the Star Bond District. So when we look at the Star Bond District that we're asking for you all to help us get completed and with the development agreement, you're looking only about half the funds that are brought in sales tax are coming into the development agreement and to be used to pay off those Star Bonds. So on average, over $27 million is expected to come into the unified government, or to be fair, into the Kansas City region in sales tax revenue that we don't have access to. That's going to come in and help fund all the other activities that are taking place in the region. All of that put together, when you think about the revenue and the funds that people are going to spend, we look at an economic impact on an annual basis over those first 20 years that averages over $525 million in economic impact. It's going to be over $220 million in private private investment to the region just for our project. But everything we're talking about is just us on our 127 acres plus the second phase of the festival grounds. Around us, there's another 350 acres that the landowners are working hard to develop, all based off the idea that we're going to be there. If we're not there doing the American Royal project, then that development doesn't occur around us. So when I talk about that economic impact, when I talk about the sales tax revenue that's going to come in that can't be captured by STAR bonds, I'm not even including the hotels, the restaurants, the other activities that we know are going to be drawn to the land that sets to our north and to our east. So we are really excited about not only what we're going to do on our 1,000,000 square feet, but what we're also excited about is the overall large impact that we're going to have on the Kansas City region. So I know there's a lot of details in this development agreement you all have questions about, and you give me a microphone and ask me to talk about this project, I could go on for a really long time. So I'm going to stop my kind of opening comments at this point, commissioners, and make ourselves available for questions you might have on the details of the project and the development agreement. But thank you again for letting us be here.
Mr. Chairman, I could either make a presentation about the development agreement and the items before you, or you could ask Ms. Klasky questions now. It's totally up to you how we proceed from here.
Todd, I think it would be a benefit if you gave a high-level overview of what's in the contract and allow us to ask questions. I'm sure all of us have different questions, so it might be best that you give an overview first.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to do that. So you have a lot of documents in front of you, and I will try very hard to make this simple, but there's a lot going on here. As you know, we've had an agreement with the American Royal in some form or fashion since late 2016. So part of what we tried to do in the agenda packet for you is summarize the document that you're going to be asked to vote on ultimately, but also to compare it and contrast it with the prior version of this deal from 7 years ago. And one of the ways that what's before you now is much different than what was there before is it's a much larger project. It has grown in scope from where we started 7 years ago. There are more arenas, more square footage. The livestock exhibition hall is substantially larger, and the agricultural education center that's contemplated in this project is much larger than what was on the table before. And the American Royal has gone to planning and had that approved in planning. So commensurate with the increased scale, the American Royal also asked for a larger incentive package. So we'll get to that. Let me say two other details about the project itself that are different than before. There is a concept in this document, in this project and the project plan today that didn't exist 7 years ago. And that's a festival grounds facility that the Royal ambitiously, I think, would like to build. It's about 120 acres, and it would be located west of 118th Street. It's contemplated in the document, but not contractually promised. So, in other words, it's kind of speculative in nature. I think they'd like to do it. They have enthusiasm about it, but it's not contractually committed. So, as we vote on a project, that's not guaranteed. It's optional. But if the Royal builds that and everything else that's contemplated, it's a $450 million project. Now, that number is much larger than what was on the table 7 years ago, which was closer to 160. So 160 million 7 years ago, 450 million today, if the festival grounds is included. And you might say, Todd, well, let's back out the festival grounds because it may or may not happen. Fair enough. That number is still close to 375 million. So you could compare 375 million today versus 160 or 165 7 years ago. And that, again, really speaks to the scale of this thing and how it's grown. I would also say a word or two about the barbecue contest. Our development agreement talks about the World Series of Barbecue, and it did before, but at the time, 7 years ago, there was some work still being done to make sure that it could be relocated here on a permanent basis. That work is now completed, and this document is very committal and strong about, hey, during the life of our agreement, the World Series of Barbecue will always be located here in Wyandotte County. So that's a word or two about the project and how the project has evolved. Let me also then jump into the financing, because there's a lot of movement here. I said before that the budget has grown substantially, and it has. The private contribution that the developer would make, the capital contribution to building this thing, has also increased substantially. 7 years ago, we were talking about the developer privately funding, without incentive, about $80 million of the $160 million project cost. Today, their contribution is contemplated to be north of $220 million. And the public-private ratio would ultimately be different. 7 years ago, it was sort of a 50-50 deal. The deal on the table today is closer to 41.25% public, and the 58%, I get that right? Yeah, private. So much different public-private ratio. Like before, star bonds are contemplated. But the number, the request has grown. So before we were talking about $80 million in star bonds, the request on the table today is $155 million. And those star bonds would be funded very similar in some ways to what was before, but there are some nuances and they're important. The boundaries of the district are the same. However, one of the nuances is that Plaza at the Speedway, the shopping center north of Parallel, has always been in the district. It was 7 years ago, it is now. But at the time, 7 years ago, the Plaza at the Speedway shopping center was in a TIF district. And the UG had issued TIF bonds for Plaza at the Speedway. And so its sales taxes were not available to be pledged to these star bonds, and they were not. Today, the Plaza at the Speedway bonds have paid off in full, and that TIF is really, for all intents and purposes, over. It's not been terminated yet, but it should be. And that revenue could be available. And the American Royal has asked for this. The Department of Commerce for the state of Kansas has asked us to contribute that to the project. And so something that we had not contributed before to the project from a sales tax perspective is now on the table and now being requested. That provides more bond capacity for these bonds, and it's critically important because that revenue stream is available today. It's there, it's ongoing, it's proven, and it really enables the American Royal to go issue bonds very quickly. Another difference about revenue that's pledged has to do with the transient guest tax revenue. The TGT was always pledged to the project, but the revenue that's going to be available in this version is more narrow than what was on before. So in other words, Plaza at the Speedway's transient guest tax is not on the table, never was then, is not now. But we've also been very clear in this version of the document that the only transient guest tax that would be available for American Royal bonds is TGT that is created on the American Royal's land. So for the rest of that district, whether it's Plaza at the Speedway or the property to the north, none of that TGT would be pledged to these bonds. And that is more narrow than what was on the table before. There is also an important nuance about the way we would issue these bonds. In 2017, the deal on the table really contemplated that we, the issuer of the bonds, would go out to market and publicly sell bonds in the marketplace. And there's a risk profile associated with that as an issuer of bonds. The project on the table today is much different from a risk perspective for the UG, because the plan here is that the American Royal would go out and first do a private placement of bonds. In other words, not go out to market publicly, but do a private placement of star bonds that they would sell to buyers of bonds that they would really source. It could be friends, it could be families, it could be foundations. It's relationships that they would have and bring to the table, and we would privately sell those bonds without going out to market. Now, as an issuer, that's a less risky proposition in a number of ways. The Royal would ultimately like to have a public issuance, but they'd like to do it down the road after they've completed their facility, after they've opened, after they have sales history, and we could then go refinance those bonds that are sold privately in the very near term. We would probably do that 4 or 5 years from now. But after you have sales history and you're up and running, it's a much less risky proposition as you go out to market because everything's out of the ground, it's fully built, it's operational, and you can see how it's performing. So the risk profile about the way we would issue bonds here is much different and in my opinion, more favorable than what we were looking at 7 years ago. Community Improvement District, that's one of the items on your agenda tonight. CID was contemplated in the original deal, but the truth is it was a very small part of the deal. It was only contemplated to be used if we needed to get to $80 million of public money somehow. It was going to fill the gap between 75 million of STAR bonds and 80 million. So it was a small number. Conceptually, it's the same, but it's likely to be a larger number because we're really talking about the difference between $155 million of STAR bonds and ultimately CID. You're measuring against 185 total. And so the community improvement district that's on the table, if all goes right, is about $30 million. And I can talk about the mechanics and how that works, but it is fair to think of it as approximately $30 million of CID. And that's bigger than what was on the table. The other piece, industrial revenue bonds. Now, this is not IRBs for tax abatement purposes. This is IRBs for abatement of sales tax on construction materials. And that item's on your agenda tonight, importantly, because you may remember this body and the commission have previously approved a resolution of intent for this project to exempt the sales tax on the construction materials. We did it maybe a year ago, more than a year ago now, and we have extended the deadline to issue those bonds a couple of times. So what's on the table tonight is another extension of these IRBs for sales tax exemption on construction materials. An important new piece of the project for us is that in connection with IRBs, the developer has been asked to pay an origination fee for the issuance of those bonds in the amount of $15 million. And an origination fee can be used by the UG fairly broadly. There's a range of uses that we can use that for. Our document contemplates that we would take that $15 million, hold it, and then use it over a 5-year period for relief on BPU pilot payments to taxpayers in the community. So effectively using $3 million a year for the next 5 years to offset the BPU pilot. I'll say a couple more things and then I'll stop because I know I'm providing a lot of information quickly. The local benefit provisions, there is a lot here that is offered by the project. I want to make sure I get these out and on the record. The American Royal would be required to maintain its headquarters here at the project in Wyandotte County. They'll actively participate in civic and philanthropic and community generally. They'll work in partnership with the Agricultural Hall of Fame. And they have also agreed to talk to the Ag Hall of Fame about that partnership. They would provide up to 25 tickets to the UG for premium seating and special events at the American Royal. They would also agree that USD 500 could hold a certain number of events every year at the American Royal, free of charge, subject to actual costs of putting on those events. Similarly, they would allow the Wyandotte County Fair to hold a certain number of events at the Core Royal and have a relationship with the Wyandotte County Fair to book certain trap shooting events at the fair's property. And then finally, they agree that they would work to incorporate the name of the city or the county into the naming of the grounds for the project, the main show area, and the exhibition hall. That's something we specifically asked for, and they agreed to do. I'll stop there because I know it's a lot and offer to answer any questions, but that is really kind of a summary of what's going on big picture in the development agreement. And I would say that the project plan that's before you is very consistent with the development agreement terms that we just described. So.
Thank you, Todd. Committee questions? Mr. Wakes?
Yes, Mr. Marsala. Question, 1 million square feet, what is the property tax value for that amount of square footage?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked this. I failed to hit this and I should have. The American Royal is a nonprofit. And the American Royal will go to the Board of Tax Appeals, and for the portions of the project which are significant, that are within their nonprofit mission, they will seek to be tax exempt and not pay property taxes on those portions. Now, if they go build the festival grounds and it's a more commercial venture in nature, it's perhaps unlikely that that could be found to be nonprofit and they would pay property taxes there. But I'll say this, the original development agreement in 17 said that if for some reason the Board of Tax Appeals found them to be taxable, such that they would have to pay property taxes, we would have brought to you, the governing body, to consider IRBs to abate the property taxes. That was part of the deal in 17. That is not part of the deal now. So whatever the Board of Tax Appeals determines, it is what it is. But it is the American Royal's intention to not pay property taxes on these facilities. I'm sorry.
So we are paying our property taxes now.
Sorry?
I said we are paying now and will until we open.
Is it ag or how are you zoned?
It is the property's zoned ag. I believe that it's taxed as a commercial use
That is
since
correct.
construction has started.
Okay, thank you. Committee, any other questions?
Mr. White, thank you for asking that question. I really should have hit that before.
Commissioner Lopez?
Okay, so let me get this straight. They want to give us 15 million. This is going to last like 3 years. And then eventually, their goal is to go tax exempt. And their
That's right.
sales tax, because it's star bond, is going to be tied up for 20 years. And we're not going to see any of that.
That's right.
So basically 15 million is what you get for the rest of the life, or well, for 20 years.
Yeah, I think that's right. If the Royal winds up being tax exempt, I think that's true. And all of the sales taxes are pledged for 20 years, also true. And it is also fair to say that the $15 million origination fee is a one-time payment, and the UG's plan is to spread that over 5 years and use it $3 million a year for 5 years. I think everything you've said is.
And then, so then after 5 years, the BPU pilot will be, our taxpayers will get hit with it again.
Yeah, there is no contribution beyond the original 15 years. That's correct.
So what is the repercussions if we decide not to pass this tonight?
Wait, I'm sorry, say again?
What happens if we don't pass this tonight?
If you
Like,
do
where
not
they
pass
go?
it tonight, we'd be nowhere with the American Royal. Honestly, they would be under construction on a project where the public financing is not approved, I guess we'd be back to the drawing board. They could better tell you what they would do, but I think you'd be nowhere.
Is that, sorry, so was that?
I'm sorry, we'd be nowhere with the American Royal.
Any other questions? Commissioner Burns?
Todd, that 15 million, and that was divided down in the development agreement for the pilot fee, right?
That's right.
Who put that in there?
We did. We did. It's really the unified government's idea.
Who are we?
In conversations with the county administrator's office, that's,
So the administrator put it in, not the commission.
well, that's right. That's right. We're negotiating this document at the staff level, and we take our direction from the county administrator's office. That's correct.
Well, I think it would have felt better if he would have told us that before we even got here tonight. But that didn't happen. So, and if it did.
Well,
In our meetings,
yeah,
he provided that information.
yeah, we've been trying to provide on threes where we have talked about that. Commissioner, I would say that that is the UG's idea about what to do with that money. I think the American Royal would be agnostic about how we use it. It was our idea about what to do with that money that we codified in the document, but I think that's us, not them.
Mr. Wicks? And please speak into the microphone so we can hear, everybody can hear.
Stated earlier that the project, if we didn't approve it tonight, they would go nowhere. What happened to the original project? Is this
The
all?
original agreement?
Yeah, the original agreement, because you're saying that this is a request to amend it. So,
Yeah.
are you saying that the original agreement would fail as well?
Yeah, I want to be careful about how far we go here, but what I would tell you is that the original agreement is for a completely different project and a totally different deal. God help us if we're trying to figure out whether it's just terminated and gone, or we could go issue bonds, 80 million. It's for such a different deal. It's enormously old. I don't think the timeframes hold up. We would be in a very unusual legal position with respect to that original agreement. Again, without going too far, I do not think the original agreement is valid as we sit here today.
Commissioner Lopez?
So, well, Plaza Speedway finally paid off. Okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Paid off early.
right, so that was our goal.
Right.
And now what it's looking like is we're wanting to go longer, 3 years longer. Well, we get some money for 3 years, and then we're back at where we started.
Well, and let me be more honest about that. I don't think we'd get that money for 3 years. I think we would go terminate the Plaza at the Speedway TIF immediately and pledge that revenue to bonds that we would try and issue this year for the American Royal. So I just want to be fair. I don't think we would collect that last 3 years of sales tax under the TIF and.
Well,
that would
no,
come
what
into
I
the
meant
general
by
fund.
3 years is this 15 million is gonna last us 3 years, is what I'm getting at.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But then it's gonna cost us more in the end too, because now we're financing bonds, right?
I may not be following you.
When you said bonding, when we're bonding, there's a finance fee in there, right?
Yeah. It costs money to issue bonds, for sure, that's true. The UG won't really pay that. The developer will pay the cost of issuance of the bonds we issue. So you're exactly right. There will be costs, but the UG is not going to eat those. The developer will pay those.
Any other questions? Okay. Okay. Okay, Commissioner Townsend?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Mr. LaSalla. And to Ms. McClaskey, if I pronounce that correctly, and council. You can't hear me again? Is this better?
It's really hard to hear. We have this heater going on up here, so it kind of
Okay.
all,
Is that better?
thank you.
All right, I'm just gonna have to hold this then, I think. Okay, Counselor, I was trying to take some notes and I just need some clarification on a few things. And it kind of goes to some of the questions my colleagues have asked, how this scope has grown such that it has to come back to us for additional funding, basically. Let me ask about the STAR bonds. If you could go back to that, we paid those off. Now, if I'm understanding there's a request to make this iteration of the project go forward for 155 million?
That's right.
Okay. So I think before we were talking about present value, what we're getting now, if anything, directly from this. Could you talk about that a little bit?
From Plaza at the Speedway.
Yes.
So there's been some modeling about the revenue stream at Plaza at the Speedway. I'm going to use real rough numbers, but
Mhm.
for order of magnitude purposes, Plaza at the Speedway has been projected to generate about $45 million of sales tax revenue over the next 20-year period.
Okay.
And if you were to apply a discount rate to that and what we could issue bonds for, a present value analysis of that, if you brought that forward to today, it's probably in the neighborhood of $25 million.
Is that what is being requested, that we forward now or give up or?
Yeah, yes, you would pledge all of the Plaza at the Speedway revenue to the American Royal bonds. So
Mhm.
that revenue stream over the next 20 years would be entirely pledged to these bonds. That's correct.
And we get in return what? What is the 25 million connection again to that?
I'm sorry, say.
Or the value, is that what you're
About
saying?
If you discount it for present value, it's probably $25 million, give or take.
Okay. Uh, Oh, was there any difference? I was trying to write so much with regard to the IRBs situation in the previous, the 20, what's our last iteration, this 2017,
Yeah.
compared to what is before us tonight?
No, the request, the incentive to the developer is about the same as what it was before. The difference really is that they're paying the origination fee.
And we were not, that's the $3 million.
$15 million, all paid up front. For them, it's a $15 million origination fee that is all paid upfront in a lump sum.
Mhm.
The idea of spreading it over a 5-year period is really the UG's mechanics about what we would do with that money.
Mhm.
As we've discussed with the administrator's office, we have talked about putting in the document that we would use that money for 5 years. It'd be $3 million a year for BPU pilot relief.
Okay, that's where that's coming from, okay. Mr. Chairman, part of this, I think, I'm having difficulty reading some of this. I'm going to conclude my questioning right now. I might have some others later. Thank you. Thank you, Council.
Commissioner Stites?
It's District 7. So a question that I have is let's just say in the last couple years, what has the TGT or the TIF at Plaza at the Speedway, what has it been paying?
I I don't know if I'm gonna have it.
I mean, I know we're talking about projected out, 20 years, it'd be 45 million, but what is it at?
You'll give us just a
Today.
second. We'll
Okay,
get you that,
I'll
we'll
wait.
get you that number. So I think it's about $500,000 a year right now. It is projected to increase over the 20-year period. So if you average it over the life of the thing, it's about $2.5 million a year, but it starts right now at about 500.
Okay. And then, so there was talk about there being, I think, sorry, about 350 acres surrounding that is in the Starbond district
That's right.
that people are waiting to either, I mean, build a plethora of items, right? Hotels, what have you. Are those, are those potential, those landowners and developers, are they able to access star bonds?
No.
Even though they're in a star bond district?
No.
They're not.
All of the revenue from the district would be pledged to the American Royal Bonds.
So the 350 acres that surround it, what would draw a hotel, because that was an example that was given, to build in a star bond district but not get star bond dollars?
Yeah,
When they could go elsewhere.
That's right. We would have to incent those hotels or other projects with other tools. It would have to be CID, the TGT. I mentioned we're saving the transient guest tax from those parcels, so we could do something with that. But you're right. There will not be star bonds issued that would benefit other users within the district.
350 acres. A
It's
substantial
all,
amount of ground.
the only recipient of star bonds in this district will be the American Royal.
So I guess what I'd say is, and I have said this about a lot of different projects, is that when TIFs were created, and this one I think was created about 17 years ago, if I remember right.
That's about right.
Around 17 years ago. I don't know that the people of Wyandotte County, when they were told that, hey, in 17 years, when this pays off, and hopefully it pays off early, in which in this case it did. It did pay off early, and that's exactly what we want. We want good development to pay off those TIFs early. That we're going to pledge that money elsewhere. You're not going to see this go back to tax relief, pilot relief for 3 years, great. But I don't think that, I'm not in favor of the Plaza at the Speedway TIF being involved in this deal. This thing should have been, that money should go right back to the taxpayers that were here and the commission that voted on it 17 years ago, that this would reduce taxes when this thing pays off. And that's my opinion.
Any other comments, questions? Well, Todd, I've read through this contract twice. And I'm not going to keep us here all night with questions I have, but there's about 4 or 5 of them that I think are really pertinent that we need to bring forward. One of them is Kansas, the American Royal right now is a not-for-profit registered in Missouri. And there is no guarantee that the Board of Tax Appeals will grant them that same designation here in Kansas. That'll be a process they'll have to go through. We'll either reap the benefit or the repercussions from that decision moving forward.
That's right.
You are meeting all the criteria set forth in the contract with the WBE concerns that we have commission have raised all along.
That's right.
The property tax exemption, the 15 million, if I remember correctly, as it was proposed in our meeting, that 15 million would be 3 million a year go to the pilot for residential reduction over 5 years, 3 million a year, which would add up to the 15 million.
right.
We don't know at this point as to what that will take that percentage down to, if it would be 4 or 5%, or if it eliminates it altogether. I don't know if those numbers are in just yet. And I look forward to having that information come forward. 2 things, another thing, if I may, the festival grounds.
Yeah.
The contract in here talks about the festival grounds. The UG and developer hereby agree that is not obligated to construct, complete, and open the fairgrounds, the festival grounds as described in section 2.2, unless and until a star bond cap is increased and related to the festival grounds. Is that telling me that they're going to be coming back before us for additional star bonds approval somewhere within, let's say, 5 to 6 years to approve an additional tranche or another bite at the apple for more star bonds? And if that is the case, would that extend the TIF project and the tax exempt status on the entire star bonds project?
It's a great question. The document does allow for the possibility to ask for additional star bonds if they go forward with the festival grounds. It contemplates that as a possibility. It doesn't promise that we would do it. But the only way that they really become contractually obligated to deliver the festival grounds is if we decide we're going to attach some incentive to it through star bonds. So
Speak up a little bit.
I'm sorry, Commissioner. The only way that they become contractually obligated to build and deliver the festival grounds is if we do something like that. If we do agree to increase the star bond cap for the festival grounds or do something like that. Currently, there is no obligation to deliver the festival grounds. It is only if that possibility becomes a reality.
And that's the way I interpreted it. I just wanted to make sure.
That's
But I believe part of this star bonds request includes the purchasing of that ground for the festival, future festival development. So it's part of the star bonds tranche, initial tranche, to purchase that ground collectively within the star bonds district.
I'm going to have to seek
I
clarification.
think at a cost of about 30 million. Is that what I'm to understand?
Is the festival grounds?
I did just check the budget. The 10 million that's in here for land does not include the festival grounds. So our total land cost, including the festival grounds, is 13 million, 13.3, I believe, and this only shows 10. So we are not counting the purchase of the festival ground, 77 acres in this.
Okay, so that's not going to be included in the first purchase or the first tranche of star bonds being requested today.
That's correct.
Okay. Under that scenario, I want to get back to my original question.
Yeah.
In 5 years, you come forward again, ready to develop the festival grounds. There will be another request for star bonds. Should this commission move forward and put the Plaza to Speedway tax revenue towards, the sales tax revenue towards the development project, would that time clock start over again with the festival grounds and the new development piece?
No, I don't think so. I think the way the bonds will be structured is that additional bonds related to the festival grounds would have to meet an additional bonds test. And so we're going to have the same star bond. We only have one project area here. And so we're really only going to have one 20-year period to work with. So the answer to that question is no.
I think that needed clarification, and that was the purpose of asking that because of some of the concerns that were raised, that if we're going to do this, it's one district, but if we're going to do it by project, then that extends it out. And at what time do we start and stop, and continue to hold that money hostage towards it?
It's a really good question.
And another question I might have for clarification, the hotels that could be built on the Star Bonds project would pay property tax. They would not be exempt, even though they would be possibly, I don't know how a not-for-profit could own a hotel. That would be through BODA. But I would assume that the attraction itself may be the arenas, but that the office building and other buildings that are utilized to provide services would be taxable. What I'm trying to get at is if hotels come in, they could very well pay property tax. It's not going to exempt them. And it would be up to us, because I know under the original Star Bonds bill, everything was tax-free except for vertical construction. In the first 20 years, when I say tax-free, the sales tax was tied to the infrastructure development. All vertical construction was taxed by property, was
Right.
property tax, unless the local unit of government chose to make it that way.
Right. The really good point I think that you're making is that the Board of Tax, and I'm quickly going to be out of my own area of expertise when you start talking about the taxability of these assets, but I believe that the way BOTA has ruled on these over the years is that when you have uses that are mixed, right, and a portion of the mixture are purely commercial uses, those assets wind up being taxable most of the time. So in a world where the American Royal would get into the hotel business and operate a hotel, that's really a commercial use. It's not within their core business, and that probably winds up being taxable, which I think is why if they go do the festival grounds, again, not my area of expertise, BOTA has to determine this, but the festival grounds probably winds up being a taxable asset. But here, the million square feet that we're talking about, the arenas and the agricultural educational center. So much of this project is right within the core mission, nonprofit mission of the American Royal. I think their expectation is that they're going to go to BOTA, and BOTA is likely to declare most of it tax exempt. But the really good question you're asking is if we wind up with this mix of uses, whether it's office or hotel or whatever, retail, whatever else, once you get commercial uses in the mix, the Board of Tax Appeals has to decide whether they're still comfortable, that that's in your core mission, that that's a tax exempt asset. And my own experience with this has been that once you start mixing things like that, a lot of those assets wind up being taxable.
Thank you. And the purpose of asking that question is the commercial property that could be developed on that Star Bonds project that's not owned by the American Royal, those sales tax revenue comes from those will go to retire the Star Bond debt.
That's right.
Which then in turn allows for the organization to come forward and ask for additional Star Bonds and would still include Plaza, the Speedway money. Nowhere in the contract does it say once the original bonds or other revenue comes in that we shorten the lifespan of the Plaza of the Speedway. That Plaza of the Speedway is going to be committed for 20 years, no matter the success of the entire project until that entire project is paid off through the first original 20 years. So if the project paid off in 12, the Plaza of the Speedway would come off and we would see the new revenue in year 13. But if we continue to use the tax revenue that is generated from new development within the Star Bonds project, it pays the project down faster, which then in turn makes the ground more valuable. That's vacant, which goes at a higher price, which in turn requires additional developers to come in, which increases the cost of Star Bonds, which then in turn drags out the remainder of the payout for Star Bonds.
Yeah, these are also really great questions and something we have debated about. The answer is it depends. And I don't mean to hedge, but
No, I
answer
understand.
it depends on how you structure that next series of bonds that you go issue. And these guys have heard us say, look, if we get to a position where we're going to go out and do a refinancing, we're going to go issue some more bonds or whatever we would do subsequently to this, they know that we're going to be looking to get Plaza at the Speedway out of the equation. So there may be a provision in here that kind of contemplates that, talks about that. That's an objective of ours. But the answer to your question is ultimately it depends on how you structure it. But they know full well that if we go do a refinancing and there's enough money and enough positive sales history, we're going to be looking for ways to get Plaza at the Speedway out. We are.
And thank you for that. This is a big ask of this community to give up revenue that this community has waited on for so long. And what we have is we have a tremendous development that is looking at being a partner with Wyandotte County. But we as commissioners are tasked with providing the services, and those services come from the tax dollars generated within our community. If we're giving those tax dollars to an entity for another 20 years, and it's going to capture that tax, it limits what kind of services we can continue to offer in our community. And that's what we're trying to do, is find that balance. And I think in all fairness to the citizens of this community, I want them to know that we are taking this very seriously. This is a long-term relationship. And the STAR bonds is one of the best economic development tools we have. But what makes this development so unique is it doesn't pay property tax, potentially. And that is the fear factor that we run into as a commission, as to we could understand providing this money from the Speedway or from this plaza to Speedway if we were seeing a return on those dollars through property tax, but we're not. And that may be a concern. We don't know yet through BODA, but that's the big conundrum that many of us are struggling with, in full transparency, Ms. McClaskey. Yes, ma'am, please.
A couple of thoughts I might share. First of all, and this will not be the first time if Todd tells me that I'm wrong, that has occurred, but one of the things I want to clarify on the Plaza at the Speedway sales tax is we are only able to access the incremental increase in sales tax from the base. So really, in that perspective, we are splitting the sales tax off the Plaza at the Speedway. We do not get it all. A portion of it still comes back to the UG. Is that fair to say, Todd?
That is fair to say.
So I think that's an important point, is that the American Royal does not have access to all of the sales tax off Plaza at the Speedway. Second point I want to share is I want you all to understand why Plaza at the Speedway is so important to us. Unlike most other STAR bond projects, we are a nonprofit. There are very few, there's definitely no other project of this size in the state of Kansas that has been implemented or financed by a nonprofit. And we're moving into a greenfield space. So we don't have anything to base existing sales off of. And that's why Plaza at the Speedway is important. To be perfectly honest, I have absolutely no problem I have no doubt under this scenario, nothing else changes that we pay off early. And if there was a way 5 years in, like when we refinance the bonds, to take out Plaza at the Speedway at that point, because we're open and we're showing sales tax revenue and things are being built around us and we don't need it, we have no objection to that whatsoever. It's about the fact that when we go sell that first tranche, that those investors, even if they're family and friends, are looking at a greenfield space with no sales tax being created compared to that other. And that's why from the very beginning it was included. And I wasn't sitting in this chair, and I know many of you weren't at that point in time, but that's why it was there originally, with only granted that it was only the state's portion. And the complication here is, right, now it's not just the state's portion, it's also yours. And we understand that complexity. We also know that if we don't have a STAR bond deal, there is no project. If there is no project, there is no origination fee. And one of the reasons we committed to the origination fee is we knew how much frustration there was over the Plaza at the Speedway dollars and where those tax revenues were going to go. The other thing I just want to mention is from day one, our numbers indicate, as well as a third-party source, that there is additional sales tax revenue coming into the UG that we cannot access in the STAR bond, especially when you're looking at day one when there are not other opportunities around us. Right now, there isn't a hotel beside us. There isn't a fast food restaurant. There isn't a place that people can go shop or buy their supplies. So that's why the third-party study and ours, both, I think the third-party study says 56 cents on the dollar would be accessed by the STAR bonds. Ours says, I think, 49 cents. Either way, you're looking at about half of every dollar that someone spends when they come to the Royal doesn't get spent in the STAR bond district. It gets spent in the surrounding areas in the community. So it is my belief that we will be contributing significantly to the sales tax revenue collected in the unified government from the day we open our doors to cover that. And I just think that's an important piece but it is not, you have to wait 20 years till you're going to see the revenue. And the more development we get around us, I think the faster we get these paid off. And that's going to bring that additional revenue as well. So those are, and I will also say that, I know well the people, I mentioned the ground to our north and our east. I talk to those folks all the time. We have one of our partners that owns ground to the west, and all of the projects that I know about are all projects that would intend to pay property tax. So while we may not, depending on what BOTUS says, may not pay it on 100% of our property, we're going to attract a lot of other projects that are going to pay property tax in this district. So those are just a few things I wanted to clarify. Thank you for giving me the time, Chairman.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, but I want to double back on your really good question about Plaza at the Speedway. I found the language that I was talking about that we had negotiated with these guys about. Remember, we're going to go do a private placement first, and they ultimately really want a public placement, a refinancing to go issue publicly. We're going to be the issuer of that. We're going to have control of that issuance. What the document says about that, the document that you're being asked to consider tonight, it says in the event that the refinancing issuance, that public issuance down the road, can be structured in a manner that does not require a continued pledge of the incremental revenues from Plaza at the Speedway to achieve the total net Star Bond proceeds of 155 million, then the parties agree to work together in good faith to remove the incremental tax revenues generated by Plaza at the Speedway from those issuances. So my point is, you're asking a really good question. It is something we have been negotiating about. And what we ultimately landed on is, look, if we go out and there's enough money, because as Jackie says, hotels develop and other things happen, and we can go out and do this without Plaza at the Speedway, we will. And they have acknowledged that, at least softly in the document. We're going to work together in good faith to find a way to do that if it's possible.
Yeah. And Jackie, I do appreciate you sharing the incremental step from the Plaza Speedway. Do we know what year we're capturing that incremental? It was the year that the Star Bonds project or the Star Bonds district was set, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
This was 2009 or something like that, 2006. Can somebody clarify that date?
2016.
2016? 2016, thank you. So that, whatever that taxes that level of taxation in 2016, any new increment sales tax, even those increment sales taxes we've captured since 16, the last 8 years is going to be lost to us. We go back to the 2016 rate. I think that's important for us to know that that I do appreciate your patience with me in running through this. These are questions that not only have been, that I'm asking, but have been asked of me. And I just want it in a matter of record so that when we come back to visit this, we have a record of such language being stated. At this time, I'm going to yield the microphone and go to Commissioner Stites.
Stites District 7. So I have one more question. So if we were talking about at the end of the payoff of the TIF would be approximately $45 million, right? That's what it would be projected at.
Yeah,
right?
it's about $45 million we think would
45.
be collected over 20 years.
And so we're at the 30, and at a discounted, you were saying maybe at 25.
That's
Why
right.
are we not asking for the 25? If this is just truly a finance mechanism tool to get their purchasers of their bonds at a comfort level to know that they're backed by a TIF, or the proceeds from a TIF, why are we settling? Why is everybody in this room that lives in Wyandotte County and online, why are they settling for a discounted rate? Why are we not asking for the full
The origination fee.
$25 million?
Yeah, and I want to be, Commissioner, please forgive me because I have to be really careful here, right? Because I don't want to mix these things
Sure.
together and make it seem like Star Bonds and origination are the same thing. They're not, right? And so they're really two different buckets of money. I know your larger point is, shouldn't the origination fee on the IRB, shouldn't it be 25? And I hear that. And the answer to that, well, let me finish the caveat. The caveat is the Star Bond money is required by statute to only go to pay for project costs related to this Star Bond project. So it is a separate and distinct pot of money. The origination fee on the industrial revenue bonds is paid privately by the developer in connection with the IRBs, and they are separate and distinct from a legal perspective. Having said that, I know where you're going, and your point is, hey, if Plaza at the Speedway, the net present value of that is about 25 million, shouldn't the origination fee be 25 million? And I get that. I think the answer to the question is that the developer is going to have a hard time paying that. They want some contribution of this to go to the project. And it's painful. I think they'll tell you it's painful for them to privately come up with that money on the private side. And so we went back and forth about this number and landed at 15.
So that 15 was a negotiated number, right?
Yes.
And I'm guessing that we
Yes.
asked for more of it.
We
for our
did. We did.
registration Fee.
We did.
And it came to this, right?
That's
Well,
right.
it's
And
also-
they started a lot lower, right? When we.
Sure, I get that. And it's painful for me, just like it is for the developer, to give up constituent money also.
Yeah.
When we are in the financial situation that the county's in right now.
Yeah, I understand.
Commissioner Lopez?
Just and I'm just trying to digest this too. How far or how equivalent would this be to the same as Dairy Farmers of America that are over here? They don't pay anything on property tax. I think they still have their star bond. But yet there is no sales tax that runs through them at all. But is that anywhere on the same lines as what they're?
Yeah, they seem very different to me, and I have to admit to you, as I sit here, I'm having a hard time remembering all the details about the DFA deal. I know that there was some benefit to that facility, but I remember it being more indirect. Yeah, I'm gonna have a hard time telling you how it's the same or different. Off the top of my head, I don't remember it well enough. It was tied up in what we were doing over at Home Field, and there was infrastructure that was being given pursuant to Home Field. So some of the star bonds were about that road, that S curve that goes around their site, but it also benefited Home Field. So there was complexity around that deal that was very different. This one is far more standalone and direct. I remember a lot of the incentive there being more indirect. I'm sorry, that's not a great answer to your question.
No, it's, in fact, I was just asking some other people I know too, and okay, thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner, by the way, I'm happy to go.
That was
that
another thing
harder.
for the state with, along with Commissioner Stites as well, was, we have a lot of residents that we were promised, they were promised, hey, 17 years ago, this is going to work out. It's going to work out. Well, they were middle-aged or getting up there, and now, well, they're not going to be around for the next 20 years. And sorry, we're going to kind of have to keep paying, we're trying to get you guys relief, but now we're trying to hook up this other deal, but I'm sorry, but now, they're going to go to the grave paying, with no tax relief when we promised them 17 years ago. That's what I'm trying to boggle as well too. So, thanks.
Commissioner Stites?
Stites District 7, and I apologize, I should ask this. I made that note, and when you talked about, you jogged my memory about something. The TIF, when it originated, is this a city, and are there any county dollars that go into this TIF, right? And so when we're talking about, and I'm assuming that is, yeah, that's yes, generally try to ask questions that I know the answer to.
I can answer that question. Shelley Knieven, Chief Financial Officer. Under the TIF for Plaza at the Speedway, there are city and county dollars. Each of them are roughly 500,000.
Right, okay, so when we talk about that this 15 million's baked into this deal for pilot relief, so the people that don't pay a pilot, residents in this county that don't pay a pilot, I guess they're not seeing the relief, even though they were asked to support this TIF on the county side. Just want to make that distinction.
One further clarification, Edwardsville and Bonner Springs both are accepted out of the TIF, so there's taxes have not been captured at all, just so that you're aware of that.
On the city side, right?
Correct,
I'm talking county.
right. I just wanted to make sure.
On the county side, they will see, because, you know, if they're not paying a pilot.
Two other questions, if I may, and then I know we want to move on. I'm looking at page 27, Todd. I don't know if that's your page or not. On the contract, it says what can't be done. It talks about automobile, truck equipment dealers, car dealers of any kind, no long-term display of vehicles unless it's a promotion. I do know that the size of that facility, there has been questions about a major car organization looking for a site that is not presently conducive to the one on our immediate east. This would not preclude them from coming here, would it? I'm looking at item number 12
Yeah, you're
on
talking about
page
the-
27.
Could the American Royal on their project do auto dealerships?
I'm talking about something like a Haggerty's or I think Ms. McClaskey knows what I'm referring to because they have reached out to me a couple of times. And I just want to ensure that we're not biting our nose off to spite our face in that particular language.
As far as we're concerned, Mr. Chairman, that language does not preclude the event that you were speaking of. What he's talking about is more of an event-driven activity, I believe, right?
It would be a weekend activity that.
We do not believe that what's in there precludes us from doing that.
Okay, and the other one would be item number 16 on the same page about, I'm looking at alcohol, a bar or restaurant. Is Danny's included in that Plaza, the Speedway area? Does it go around the backside of Danny's?
Yeah, these restrictions would not govern Plaza at the Speedway. These are really restrictions on the American Royal.
I understand that, but would Danny's revenue, sales tax revenue from his alcohol go to no? Okay. I just want to make sure that we're not losing additional revenue by language within the contract.
I hear you.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I plan to bring forward this evening. If there's any other questions, they'll come for public display. At this time, committee, I'm going to ask the clerk if there's anyone have sent in written comments from the public.
No comments were received.
I'll ask the clerk if any hands online raised that would like to speak to this item.
There are no hands raised online.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this item? Please approach the podium and give them your name and address. You will have 3 minutes to make your comments. And again, please name your city of residence for the record. Welcome.
Lavert Murray, Chief Economic Development Advisor, Mayor Tyrone Garner's office. I should also note that I am the retired Director of Development, retired Economic Development Director for the Unified Government. And I note that tonight because in my past iteration, I actually created the Plaza at the Speedway TIF district in my position there. And that's why I'm here tonight. I discussed this project with the mayor, and he wanted me to be here tonight to at least share with you concerns. And of course, I did mention this to Chelsea, and I think we may have it resolved, but I'm not certain. I will tell you that I've contacted the Kansas Department of Commerce and the Lieutenant Governor's office to receive specific clarification as to whether or not, and I should point out, as you may know, on January 1, the sales tax on groceries was eliminated. I've not received confirmation that when you look at the forecasts, the modeling, the projections for the use of the sales tax dollars from Plaza at the Speedway, that those dollars are eliminated as a result of the January 1 action. For example, you have at the Walmart there in Plaza at the Speedway, it's projected that there's approximately 40 million annually in grocery sales. At the Sam's Club, there's approximately 40 million annual sales in groceries. Now, we know and we've received word that yes, the projection certainly excludes or includes the fast food. We're not talking fast food, we're talking grocery sales. So again, we want to make sure that those projections do not include the sales tax.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Grocery items. And that is my primary concern. Now, also, the developer for Plaza at the Speedway was originally Mr. Delaporta south of Chicago. It has been purchased from Mr. Delaporta's from or by Mr. David Block. Mr. David Block wants to do some things at Plaza at the Speedway to develop some of the undeveloped ground. And by utilizing all of the sales taxes within the area, that he believes this may hamper his ability to develop the ground in front of Kohl's, adjacent to Sam's Club, et cetera. Again, we're not objecting to this. We just want to make sure you are aware of what concerns that are out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Is there anyone else in the audience who care to speak to this item? Let the record show no one else will step forward. Committee, I entertain a motion for item number 2, the ordinance and execution second amended restated Star Bond project plan and amended development agreement with the American Royal.
Chairman, I move that we adopt it.
Is there a second? Without a second, the motion would fail. Is there a second? Seeing no second, motion fails. Committee, any other action you care to take? Council? Where does this take us now?
I'd have to confer, but I think the other items are related. So we may be at a standstill.
Yeah, I think if we're not going to take forward the Star Bond development agreement and the project plan, don't think it you could vote to take forward the CID without it, but I don't think it would make sense. The third item might be different because it's an extension of a deadline for the resolution of intent about the industrial revenue bonds, and that project is active, ongoing, and outstanding, and using the sales tax exemption, the project exemption certificate related to that for their current construction. So you might feel differently about that one and vote to extend that date if we're going to go back and get with the developer and figure out where to go from here. That you might feel differently about that one, but that's up to you.
Does this Star Bond, you mentioned the IRBs earlier for not to include property tax. I remember that statement being made, but it does include furniture and fixtures, if I remember correctly. And that has not been the norm years ago, but then kind of became the norm. And now the language here before us is only for construction materials only. So have we taken the other items out of that? Because it's a $250 million ask, if I remember. I'd have to go back. I apologize. I'm a little ahead of myself.
I think it is broader than just the sales. I usually talk about it that way. Let me see if I can put my hands on it.
Yeah, it says 250 million for the benefit of the American Royal Association and its successors, and assigns for sales tax exemption only. But inside the language, if I remember the IRBs, the request was for construction materials, furnishings, and fixtures.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the request is construction materials and FF&E, as is typical of most of these projects. The dollar amount requested, 250 million, is much larger than we would anticipate actually issuing. And we do that out of an abundance of caution so that when we get to the issuance, we have sufficient capacity. But it's a lesser amount that we would anticipate needing to issue for materials and FF&E.
Okay. And I appreciate you not wanting to come back and ask for an additional amount on top of that. Is this for furnishings and fixtures also? And not just sales tax on construction goods? On construction materials?
Build, yes. We don't commonly distinguish between those. I think it's fairly typical of all requests that I've been involved with on the Kansas side that would include FF&E.
Commissioner Stites?
Besides District 7, my 4 years here, I've never heard it being FF&E. The only thing I've ever heard of it being was construction-related materials, so this is a first. And I don't know if there's been other projects that were that can be stated. I'd like to hear them, but I don't recall one. Let me put it to you that way. And my other question would be, Todd, when does this, the current, you're looking to extend it, when does it expire?
Is it at the end of the year? Oh, we were asking to extend to the end of the year.
I could have it.
Oh, at the end of the month. Is that right? The end of this month?
Please.
So
They were just saying that it's up at
January.
at the end of January, so for 25 days, 20.
So they would lose, if we do not vote to extend the resolution, they would lose the benefit of the sales tax exemption on that construction materials at the end of the month. So,
We made that commitment early on.
and we've extended two or three times. before.
Yes, I do know that we have done that. I guess it's, if we want to move forward, as chairman of the agenda, I'll take up item number 3. If it's okay with Todd, if you think it's beneficial, if there's changes that can be made or chances that this project can be saved and or amended or addressed in any way, shape or form, if we can do that here for further discussion, if item 3 allows that, I'll be more than happy to run item 3.
Yeah, I think it would. You've got an active ongoing construction project out there if it's your pleasure, I think it would be probably deeply appreciated by the developer if you would extend that date again while we figure out where we are.
Okay, great. With that in mind, item number 2 failed for lack of a second. We're going to move to, item 3 is not pertinent to tonight's meeting. So we will move to item number 4. Yeah, it's item number 3 on mine under the new agenda. Item number 4 would be the intent to issue industrial revenue bonds for the American Royal Project in the sum of $250 million for the benefit of the American Royal Association and its successors and assigns for sales tax exemptions only. So I'll recognize Chelsea Chisholm. I don't think there's very much that needs to be discussed here, but if Todd, I think we've covered it.
Right.
If you just want to go ahead and go to questions, I can do that.
Right. That's exactly right, Mr. Chairman. This is just an extension of the existing resolution of intent for IRBs.
Okay. I'll ask the clerk, any questions from the committee? We understand what this is? Okay. Moving forward, I'll ask the clerk if there are any comments received from the public.
No comments were received.
I'll ask the clerk if there are any hand raised online from the public who wish to speak to this item.
There are no hands raised online.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this item? Let the record show no one step forward. I would now entertain a motion to adopt the resolution to extend IRBs up to $250 million.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Wakes.
Aye.
Lopez.
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Stites. Townsend,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you, committee, for your work and your patience. We look forward to seeing you again, I anticipate. Thank you, everyone, for the time, seriousness of this situation. We're going to move on into the rest of the agenda as soon as we have an opportunity to change chairs. We do have, the next item up is a resolution setting the public hearing, giving notice of creating a community improvement district for Buc-ee's. I want to make sure I'm on the right page here.
Thank you, Chairman Burrows and members of the committee. Chelsea Chisholm, Economic Development Director. Up tonight, we have on items, I think it's 4.5 and 4.6, 2 items for Buc-ee's. I think everyone's very familiar with the project. 74,000 square foot travel center, 120 gas pumps, electric vehicle charging stations. This is located south of the Speedway. It's about $95 million of total budget. The incentive terms were agreed to in a development agreement that was approved by ED&F and passed by the full commission in November 2024. Few of the key deal points under that development agreement: construction timing set to commence mid-2025 and be completed within 24 months. The TIF is up to 3.3 million for a period of 15 years. The CID at a 1% sales tax, up to $10 million for a maximum of 20 years. Both those incentives are really just equate into the infrastructure investment that developers making associated with constructing the roundabout and repositioning the road. IRBs for sales tax exemption only. There's no property tax abatement on this project. Incentives are all pay as you go and capped at 20% of total project costs. I really think the ratio is closer to about 15% public and 85% private. So the project is returning to the standing committee, really just to begin the statutory procedure for implementing incentive tools, the TIF and CID that were already approved under the development agreement. This procedure would be expected to be completed by June 2025, which is about as quickly as we can accomplish this due to notice periods and publications required by state statute. So on the TIF, the statute requires a 2-step procedure. We establish a district, then we adopt a project plan. That takes several months to accomplish, just with the publications and notification requirements previously mentioned. The resolution begins step 1 by calling the public hearing on the establishment of the tax increment financing district. If adopted, notice will be published and taxing jurisdictions will be notified as required by statute. The public hearing on the district establishment would be then held on March 6, 2025, and then we'd consider the ordinance establishing the district. On the community improvement district, it establishes a 1% additional sales tax that would be set to commence July 1st, 2026. To initiate this process, the statute requires a petition submitted by the property owner, then a resolution calling the public hearing. Public hearing on CID sales tax would then be held on March 6, 2025 to consider the ordinance establishing the CID and levying the sales tax. We also have John Chamberlain here. He's with Kimley Horn, project engineer for Buc-ee's, if there's any questions on that end. And then one more thing I would mention, and this is kind of atypical, but the developer has requested that we would delay, if the committee is agreeable to these items, that it would delay the full commission consideration until February 27, so that they have authority to execute the documents at that time.
So just for clarification, whatever action we take tonight, we're going to hold it, the administration will hold it until the February 27th. It won't go on the next, automatically go on to the next calendar full commission meeting. Is that my understanding, council?
That's right, Commissioner, or Mr. Chairman. It'd be similar to building in the motion to fast track, only it's kind of the opposite. You'd
Hold it until the February 27th.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, council. These are two separate items discussed in one sitting. What I'd like to do is take item number 1 first, and I think it's important. Committee, any questions or comments? Commissioner Lopez?
Would it be, I mean, I know we've talked about this, time and time again, but would it be beneficial for these items to be fast tracked to the next commission instead of me? Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Disregard. Thank you.
And I think if I may, it's important for the public to know that when we offer the CID and a tip, that is paid through sales tax that is usually generated by those that visit the site. It is not coming out of our taxpayer pockets.
Correct.
Commissioner
I
Stites?
think it'd be important to note that it is a self-imposed tax
Yes.
that they're putting on themselves to accomplish the infrastructure, it sounds like, to the needs. And they could have went up to 2%, but I like that they only went 1%. Thank you.
And they are paying property tax.
Correct.
And paying property tax.
Yeah. Committee, I'd entertain a motion for approval or whatever the action of the committee may be.
Stites, I make a motion to approve resolution as submitted and to, I'm going to coin it, slow track until February 27th, full commission meeting.
Lopez, second.
Thank you. Just for clarification for those listening, this is item number 5. This is setting the public hearing. That's item number 1. And slow walk this one. So we have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Wakes.
Aye.
Lopez.
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Stites. Townsend.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Committee, item number 6, I'd entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to the resolution. This is item 4.6, as submitted and to slow track till February 27th, full commission meeting.
Lopez, second.
Thank you, committee. Committee, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Wakes.
Aye.
Lopez.
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Stites. Townsend.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, committee. Committee, that concludes our meeting this evening. I appreciate your attentiveness. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Wakes move to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Wakes.
Aye.
Lopez.
Aye.
Burns. Stites.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. I do believe that the Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee, are they still on for this evening?
Yes, that is correct,
Okay.
Chair.
Give them about 5-7 minutes and they'll begin their meeting. Thank you, everyone that attended. Appreciate your input.
need that last commissioner. Give us 1 minute. All right, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. We have a pretty light agenda given some of the changes. And so hopefully we'll get out of here in a decent hour. My name is Andrew Davis. I'm the 8th District Commissioner and Chair of the Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee. Today is January 13th, Monday, 2025. Before I call the meeting to order, I want to announce that some committee members, staff, and the public are attending remotely via Zoom as well as on site. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. When speaking, please speak directly into the microphone to ensure everyone listening is able to hear your comments and to ensure a clear record is made. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak, so the public that is observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and its current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of this meeting. The public may also indicate their intent to provide remote public comment by contacting the clerk's office by noon on the day of the meeting. The public also will have an opportunity to provide brief comments either by telephone or via Zoom from the 5th floor conference room of the municipal office building. Public comment will be allowed during each item. Comments should be limited to the item at hand, and per commission rules of procedure, should not include any rude or derogatory remarks, reflections as to integrity, abusive comments, and statements as to motives and personalities. I will now call the Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee meeting for January 13th, 2025 to order. Clerk, can we have the roll?
Roll call. Hill.
Here.
Ramirez, we have an absence memo. Townsend.
Here.
Bynum.
Here.
Davis.
Here. Thank you so much. Clerk, are there any revisions to the agenda this evening?
I do have one.
Yes,
thing.
Chair.
Yes, we'll start with the clerk and then we'll go with you, Mr. Knapp.
Yes, Chair. There is one revision to tonight's agenda. We are going to continue item number 4.1, the resolution adopting the substantial amendment to 2023 HUD Annual Action Plan. We are going to continue that to February 3rd's Neighborhood Community Development Meeting.
Awesome. Yeah, I know there are some scheduling issues there, so that'll be moved to our next meeting. And then Mr. Knapp, you had mentioned there was another application.
Item C2 was removed by the applicant.
Item C2. Okay. Awesome. All right. Moving on with some business here. We have the December 4th, 2023 and February 5th, 2024 minutes. Again, shout out to our clerk's office for making it into the year 2024 for our minutes. I know there's still a lot of work to be done, but thank you all. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes or any questions?
Mr. Chair, move to approve as accepted.
Is there a second?
Bynum, second.
All right, clerk, can we get the roll?
Roll call. Hill.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you so much. Okay, on to our items for action. We have the land bank options coming out of the land bank office. I'll go ahead and hear from Mr. Judd Knapp, our land bank manager, to talk about these applications.
Thank you, Commissioner. I did misspeak. I did say C2 was removed, but it was actually C1. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
And our voting order tonight, A1 through A10, I think can be voted on as a group. Then we go to A11 and A15 for the Peregrine Falcon neighborhood is all in that group. And then we finish up with C2. All right. A1 is at 736 Split Log Avenue. It's for a single-family home. The applicant has construction experience and they're building a home to live in for their family. A2 is at 2726 North 59th Street. This applicant also has construction experience, but they are planning to sell for $250,000. A3 is at 8416 Parallel Parkway. This is for 2 lots that are close together. This applicant is looking to build a home that doesn't have stairs to live in. And this applicant also has construction experience. A4 is for 3 lots at 111 Tenney Avenue. This applicant has built on land bank lots before. And their plan is to sell these homes for $250,000. A5 is at 6831 Webster Avenue. This applicant also has construction experience, is planning to live in it or in the future sell the home. A6 is the same applicant as A5. This application is in Bonner Springs. So the same rules apply for me as the land bank, is that once the city of Bonner issues a building permit, I can transfer the property to them. A7 is at 2445 South 12th Terrace. This is for 2 lots to build a single-family home. The second lot is a very weird L-shaped lot that is an unbuildable lot. That's why I'm including it with this build. The applicant owns a construction company and plans to sell. A8 is at 2631 Vista Street. This applicant also owns a construction company and is planning to sell. A9, 10, and 11 are the same person. They are, at A9 is 1030 Grandview Boulevard. They're requesting 4 lots to build 4 homes. This group does have building experience, and I believe the applicant is with us tonight to answer questions for us. The next application at A10 is at 1132 Tenney Avenue. This is for 2 parcels that they plan to replat to make 3 parcels out of this to build 3 homes. And then, Commissioner, that is A1 through A10.
Thank you so much, Mr. Knapp. Okay. I'll go ahead and see if there are comments from the public and then committee. If there are some questions or dialogue we want to have, we can go ahead and do that. Clerk, for the items A1 through A10, were there any written comments received from the public?
No written comments were received.
Okay. Are there any hands raised online for items A1 through A10?
I see no hands raised online.
Okay. For the folks here in the gallery, is there anyone that would like to speak to any of the items A1 through A10? Okay, let the record show no one has approached the podium. I'll go ahead and close the public comment portion. Committee, are there any questions? If you're online, we will need to either raise your hand or text me or do something just so I know. Any questions on these items? Or is there a motion? Yes, Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would you please, Mr. Knapp, go over number 4 again? I don't think I caught everything that you said. Might have a question, I might have no question, but if you could just give your review again of items under A4.
All right, so this is, the applicant is requesting 3 lots on Tenney Avenue to build 3 homes.
Mhm.
The applicant has already built homes on land bank lots before. That's basically it.
Nothing unusual, okay, I must have scribbled something. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other questions, committee, or is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve all the items presented under A1 through and including A10.
All right. Is there a second?
Bynum, second.
All right. Clerk, can we have the roll?
Roll call. Hill,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you so much, Mr. Knapp. A11.
All right, so the next A11 through A15 are all in the Peregrine Falcon neighborhood. And I would say with all these applications, this does take every lot that's in the Peregrine Falcon subdivision. A11 is a new one that we did not see last month. But this applicant is a proven builder and knows how to build and has already talked to the neighborhood group and the MBR. Basically are asking for 5 lots to build 4 homes. The neighborhood group did submit that they support this project. They did have conditions on that support. They said that the homes have a basement and that they followed the HOA covenants. And I have to say, all the applicants that applied in the Peregrine Falcon neighborhood group has received a copy of the HOA covenants from me. And the applicants have told me that they will follow them. So that's A, and then A12 is, we've seen this one last month. This builder actually has a completed option on 2601, I believe, to build one. So they have a building permit and are building. This is the one that had some issues with the basement requirement, but I talked to the applicant and they said they're going to change their plans and put a basement in. And they'll also put a basement at 2605 also. A13 is with Kenneth Washington. He wants 4 lots to build 4 homes. This one had some discussion last month because Kenneth Washington is also the builder for altar support. And the question was, does he have enough capacity to build altar supports lots right next to this while doing this at the same time? I have talked to him and he said he definitely does. A14 is the next applicant. It's like 11, applying for 11 lots. This is actually outside of the Peregrine Falcon subdivision, so the HOA covenants do not apply to here. The comments that we received on this one was the neighborhood group thought that the city bought out lots on this road to move people off of Fifth Street to get away from Garland Park. Because there was like concerns that it was contaminated. But I have to remind that this is what the brownfield program is for, is to find and identify and clean up these. And this is the whole point of the option agreement, is to let builders have the opportunity to build. And if there is a brownfield problem, they can always back out and go to another lot. A15 is 2 parcels smaller than it was last time to move for the Dunbar School landmark. So those 2 parcels are not included in this, so that moves this builder down to 4 lots there. And again, we got a letter of neighborhood support for this. This comment on this, on the neighborhood had an additional comment for this side. It said that the basement was, the backyard hit 7th Street and have access off 7th Street. But I believe since I talked to planning that no access will be granted off 7th Street. All access off of 6th Street. Commissioner, that concludes all the applications in Peregrine Falcon.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Knapp. Committee, I'll do kind of the same as before. We'll start with public comments and then we'll transition to conversation. So clerk, for items A11 through A15, were there any written comments for those items?
No comments were received.
Any hands raised online?
We do have one hand raised online. Eric Murray.
All right. For that person that has their
He
hand
lowered his
raised.
hand now. I do apologize, Chair.
Oh, okay. All right.
And maybe he didn't mean to.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Eric. He's got his hands raised.
Okay. Person with your hand raised, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and city of residence for the record.
Perfect. Thank you, Commissioner Davis. My name is Eric Murray. I'm a KCK resident. I wanted to talk briefly just to give some history of this site. Obviously, Peregrine Falcon started that development 12, 15 years ago. That neighborhood was intended to be, an upscale neighborhood. There are 5 homes complete in that neighborhood that all have similar upscale character. And I want to commend the builder on 2530 North Halleck, who just built and delivered a 6-bed, 4-bath, $530,000 home that was sold to a homeowner. And so there's not only a historical history, but a recent comp that shows that a more upscale product is viable in this neighborhood. I'm concerned that applicant A11 is being given a significant number of lots on a history of build to rent and cheaper product. I'm concerned on applicant A15. They said a $289,000 price point. If you look at their website, they've done projects, in the area that are in the $190,000 range. And don't get me wrong, I'm very much pro development. I want to see price points delivered and homes delivered at all levels from 150 to 550,000, but specific to Peregrine Falcon as the flagship neighborhood of that community. If it's proven now that a local builder who's known to the land bank, known to all of us, known to the HOA, can deliver that product at that price point and respect the neighborhood character, it would be a shame to give all of the lots away, as Judd has mentioned, first off, without going back and giving some preference to the folks who have built in this area and who've delivered on those commitments, but then to do so at a $280,000 price point or a build to rent price point. And the only recourse is, well, they told me they would add a basement. Certainly at a minimum, those conditions need to be made and, as part of the approval. But I just want us to be thoughtful about that in, preserving the character.
Remaining.
Thank you. Preserving the character of this neighborhood. And again, I say that cautiously because I also want to see development occur. And I would love to see these applicants and some of these concepts and price points on other land bank lots. And I think there's tons of opportunity there. But I also want to respect, again, that builder at 2530 North Halleck and the neighbors that are there. So thank you for your time. I hope you'll take that comment into consideration.
Thank you. And Mr. Murray, but before you go, were you just speaking to all of the applications that were that's in the Peregrine Falcon area?
Yes, I'm speaking to the Peregrine Falcon ones. Obviously, I think one of them is
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Thank you. Appreciate it. Do we have any other hands raised online?
There are no other hands raised online.
Okay, thank you so much. I know we have some folks here in the gallery that are have been patiently waiting. So please go ahead, state your name, city of residence. You'll be given 3 minutes.
My name is Daisha Bush, and I stay in Kansas City, Kansas also. And I want to give some clarity and second what the gentleman just said. I don't know the technicality or the language, but as the secretary of the neighborhood group, to add to Judd's comments about
the approval of the neighborhood group, it was based on the residents that stay currently in those beautiful homes, stating that they wanted to maintain the integrity of that space. And so while it may read as just add a basement, we're okay, that is not what that comment meant. What it was really saying was there were rumors that some of the developers were only going to build on slabs, and many of the residents within Paragon were against that. So that's the comment of adding in basements. But to the point of the gentleman that just spoke, the 300,000 and more was also discussed that was not added in the comments for those lots. And so I just want to second his point that we want to maintain what's there or better, and we're not looking for less than. There was also a conversation about the difference between affordability and attainability. So again, just keeping the value of that space consistent. And then there was also a comment made about the applicant who had the 11 parcels off of Fish Street that had the Garland Park
Can you
concern.
speak closer to the mic? ma'am?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
The one that had the 11 parcels off of Fish Street, that there was some interest in also maintaining the look of the Peregrine neighborhood, even adjacent to that, because it's still within that same area. So that's what I wanted to add in terms of context to what Mr. Judd said and the gentleman that just spoke. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. For folks that are talking, particularly if you're providing public comment or just speaking into the mic, please speak loudly. I'm getting some feedback from folks online, and they're saying they're having a hard time hearing. And so, yes, hold questions committee just for now. Let's finish out public comment, and then we're going to go ahead and jump into it as well. Alice, was there one small thing, Mr. Towns?
Well, this is a general thing because we're going to have to vote on each of these, and had a few questions about which of these were holdovers. Item 11 through 15. And I would appreciate if we went one by one, so these comments may be relevant or at least identified as relevant to a particular thing.
Okay.
So it makes it easier for those who are going to vote on these to know what specifically pluses or minuses as they pertain to these particular numbered items. So if you have a comment, I would appreciate if you,
Sure.
ask them to, identify.
Okay.
Which one.
So,
Thank you.
yes, thank you so much, Commissioner Townsend. So yes, if you all, when providing public comment, can speak to which application, it could be one or multiple, that you are speaking to, and then we can work from there. All right, take it away.
My name is Darnell Bush, and I live in KCK. And I wanted to, I looked at the website. I've been looking at it for a while. And I'm looking at the WCLB policy, and it's still in draft form. And I'm just wondering if everything that we're talking about as it relates to the policy is mute, because the policy has not been adopted as of yet. So, and the 19 policy is no longer on there. And I think it says 2023, I'm positive it says that. So that's a question I would like to have answered. And also, in the neighborhood group approval and participation, that's not a part of the policy, and that's section 2.7B is kind of where that's kind of gets a little bit ambiguous. And then the WCLB has a right to accept or reject.
Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
This was for speaking to the applications A11 through A15.
Right.
Yes.
And I'm trying to make it relate or show how it relates.
Okay, gotcha. Just wanted to make sure.
Sure. The lots for 11 through 15, 8A, 11 through A15. I just got through speaking with Judd, and he read the comments that we put in there that stated that we did want to have the basements and the things that Ms. Bush has talked about in that. So what I just kind of wanted to do is it relating back to the policy because the developers are not following the HOA agreements, or is
You have
it,
1 minute remaining.
or is it related to, because Judge said that he gave them the HOA agreement, why isn't it being followed? That's what but I'm going back to the policy. Is it because that there's no clear direction in the policy? Because that's just kind of what I'm trying to get at. I realize it's getting kind of technical, but I'm just going to, if it's in the policy, then we really don't need to have any further discussion because we could just point to the policy. That's just kind of where I wanted to bring out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very quickly, if I do recall, Council, we did vote on the policy last month, if I'm not mistaken, for the Land Bank Board of Trustees. Do you concur on that?
Yes, and it was passed unanimously at the commission meeting that followed. So we just need to make sure we get it on the land bank site.
Yes, so thank you for notifying us. There's been a lot going on in City Hall and trying to get things moving, but we will make sure that the new adopted policy is uploaded on the website, but it has been adopted by the full Board of Commissioners. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Okay, are there other folks that would like to provide public comment? Name, city of residence, and then again, which particular applications you're speaking to. And please speak into the microphone. You could. Yeah.
Nathan Barnes, and I am Kansas City, Kansas residents, and this is the 8 through 11, I believe we were talking about.
Yes, but you can bring that microphone down a little bit. Yeah, you can adjust it.
Right.
Just want to make sure people hear you.
So, Mr. Bush just mentioned something very important. We talk about policy, and I'm going to ask for additional time because that's, how do we go about doing that?
Well, let's use up your 3 minutes first, and then I do want to give other folks a chance to provide public comment, and then we can go from there. I don't necessarily want to be unfair, so.
Okay. I mean, I may not need it, but Mr. Murray earlier spoke about it. A $530,000 house has been built in this community. It would be a travesty to allow somebody to come in and build what they want to build, how they want to build it, and someone has invested $500,000 in this community. That's a travesty. It needs to be discussed. Land bank policy does not fit Peregrine Falcon. We're piecemealing this project out to several different individuals that call themselves developers or builders or whatever they call them. We have no knowledge of their skill level, what they're able to produce, the product that they're able to produce, but yet we have no voice in that process. And we give them the lot based on their conversation. They come in with an idea to put slabs in without our input. And then on a conversation, they agree to put a basement in. We don't know if that's going to happen or not. We are frightened by this process. I really think that we need to slow down, back up, and say, hey, how may I help you, rather than shove something down our throats. If you hear a little frustration in my voice, I am frustrated at this point. That it's so difficult for us to design a community where people have made a giant investment into their future, and some staffer at City Hall can screw it up just like that. Not on purpose, but just because we're making widgets here and we're not concerned about what you need in particular in your community. And so we can embrace the success that we're having now in the Northeast area, the interest that have been created, and go forward and be
You
successful.
have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. Or we can blow this aside and mess up a great opportunity to transform this community. This is serious, very serious, not just because I live there, but because this is an opportunity for the whole entire Northeast area to lift up this community and say, hey, come on in, the water's warm. We've got General Motors, all kind of stuff in Fairfax. People would love to live 3 minutes away from their home, I mean, from their job. Perfect property for them, but we can screw it up if we don't slow down and do it right. I have a question that I'd like to go on record, and I would like an answer in some kind of way. We have a declaration in place, but yet and still, that declaration in place has nothing to do with people coming down there building. They come down there and build anything they want to. And then they say it's up to the homeowners to do it. We are in the process right now of hiring legal counsel to make that happen. His schedule is backed up. He's in the middle of a big case and he can't get to us right now, but that's underway. The bylaws are going to be reviewed, combined with the declarations. And so, but I don't think the power, there's no power in the declaration as it's written right now, because people can come and do anything they want to do. And then the city turns around and tell us, the homeowners have to enforce this. I don't understand the purpose of a declaration in the first place.
Your time has expired.
Additional time, please.
Mr. Walker, I do want to be mindful of the other folks that do have something that they would like to say.
Mr. Walker.
And so, oh, I'm so sorry. Sir, I'm so sorry. I do want to be mindful of the other folks that have something to say. And so if you want to, if you have, how much more do you have to share?
I'll do it in less than 2 minutes.
Okay. I'll give you a minute. How about that?
Okay, well, now I have a problem with that.
Okay.
I do have a problem with that.
I'll give you one more minute to finish, and then I do want to move on for public comment. Okay. All right. Thank you. Need your name, city of residence, and then which applications you're speaking to.
W.D. Young, address is 2602 North Howard. I am one of the residents, one of the first ones, or I say the second one that built down there. I was sold a ideal that Peregrine Falcon was rebuilt in 3 phases. It sounds like we just in 1 phase now. And I cannot understand these properties that are being given to the builders to say building. Why would they choose these properties? If I was a builder, I would not build on that 7th Street side, hanging off the back with my back porch at 7th Street. There's no yard there. So how are they going to come out into a backyard? To me, there's not 11 spaces up there. It's not even 7 up there. I think they need to come out and relook at that. I want to know where all these developers come 10 years ago when we was down there. Nobody was coming down and wanted to build. All of a sudden, we had 4 or 5 at our doorstep knocking, saying, here, we got property down there, it's free. I had to buy my lot. To me, that is unfair for the builders come down to get the lot free, and then they're gonna turn around and build a house and gonna sell it. To me, that's not the way it was structured. We need to go back and look how it was designed when Bob Hughes was the developer. That's what we should go off of. This coming up, giving it to the land bank for them to give away lots. There's many more lots down there. Why do they have to get these certain lots? And then nobody should be able to sit on a lot for 2 years saying they're gonna build and haven't came down with nothing. I asked to buy the property next door when I did have some money, but they told me, no, you only can have 1 lot. Now we look like people are coming out getting lots from everywhere. So to me, something's wrong somewhere. And you talking about our document, you know, when people come down there, they're coming in, moving, and they're doing what they want to do. We can ask the police to come down there and help us. Seeing like nobody is caring, nobody don't want to say anything. We can't even get the code enforcement to come down here. Here's a man digging out his backyard at 10:30 at night. That's not right. I mean, that is not what I bought into. We're supposed to have some upscale houses down there. Now you're coming down like you're trying to put shotgun
You have
houses.
1 minute remaining.
Okay, to me, that's not gonna work. Now, I see a developer we talked with last night, or a builder in here. I'm hoping he comes up and say something. But these other few builders, you can say, you might as well tell them no. You can tell them, no, we don't want them down there with the houses they trying to be, because it does not fit in.
Thank you. Just need name, city of residence, and then which applications you're speaking towards. And please speak into the microphone just so we can make a clear record.
Forgotten.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Elnora Jefferson, and I'm a resident of Kansas City, Kansas. I'm here to represent the American Falcon. I stand here as a representative of the MBR. And I think you've heard some of this, and I know that we want to take the applications individually because that's how we're going to vote, or that's how they'll be voted. But my comments are basically general. So if you'll allow me, except for one that I know I can speak to specifically, to mention that. I think what we're seeing right here is a result of selling a dream to people who wanted to and did invest in a development. And over time, whether it is the Native American lawsuit or COVID or whatever it is, the original dream and the process changed from being an active development for a subdivision to be just really a large infill development project. As an infill development project, they're not the same standards, if you will, or the same concept or whatever the proper word is. So we're seeing this type of disgruntlement and displeasure. And most certainly the people who are there deserve to have the very best because they invested in the very best. My thought, my recommendation, and from the MBR would be, and one of the residents, the homeowners association asked this, is that all of these applications be put on hold and a meeting with the elected officials, District 1, District at large, and whomever else come to the table to actually negotiate and come and find out whether or not and how, perhaps, how the dream that these people invested in, even to the point of buying their lots, can be attained. Former Commissioner Barnes mentioned Fairfax, absolutely true. We used to have a housing policy, it was called CHIP, and that was available to the police officers and the first responders, and in exchange for living in a particular area.
We have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. Part of the agreement with their employment. So all of this comes under the heading of equitable development. And that is my request, is that they all be, these two, and they all be held. Then until that conversation could be done, we could back it up and attack that redevelopment the way that it was initially sold. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Are there any folks in the gallery that would like to offer a public comment?
Lavert Murray, Chief Economic Development Advisor. I should point out, as I pointed to history of the past earlier, I worked with Bob Hughes Jr. in the past, and I assembled all of the ground for Peregrine Falcon for this development. I know Ms. Jefferson mentioned the parcels along Fifth Street. They were not singled out because of contamination. They were singled out because they were blighted, and we wanted Fifth Street to match the character of what was to be built in Peregrine Falcon. Now, and of course, I provided some time ago the homeowner declarations to Mr. Knapp because those declarations have been filed with the Register of Deeds. There have been meetings with the county administrator, and I know he has been, it has been requested of him to make sure that as parcels are parceled out for Peregrine Falcon, that all of the development meets the requirements of the homeowner declaration. I'm told, so I don't know for certain, I've not had that discussion with Mr. Johnston. And I'm also told that Mr. Johnston met with Mr. Knapp to show a preference for mosaic construction that's built the $580,000 home in Peregrine to serve as a single developer and maybe work with the other developers to guarantee the kind of building character that's being built in his current home permeates throughout Peregrine Falcon. And so I would echo Ms. Jefferson's comment that maybe things should be put on hold to bring all of this together to make sure that the residents of Peregrine get what they were promised when this subdivision was started.
You have 1 minute remaining.
It does appear to be at this point piecemeal. I know that when Mosaic Construction approached Mr. Johnston, he indicated a desire and the ability to finance and build out Peregrine Falcon. And of course, there appears to be some misunderstanding. Like I said, I've not had that discussion with Mr. Johnston. I did mention it to Mr. Lucas today in our staff meeting with the mayor to make sure that at least he's processing that information. But it would appear that here is the last opportunity that we have to give to the residents of Peregrine what they've been looking for. And please, let's not let that slip away. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other folks? Yes. Need your name, city of residence, and then which applications you're speaking to.
Tyler Burks, Kansas City, Missouri is where I reside. I am speaking on my application, A11. I actually got to meet with the neighborhood community yesterday with Peregrine Falcon. It was great to meet with them and understand their concerns that they've addressed to me and what they would like to see out of the community. I'm here to say that I would like to deliver that to, for them and give them the rest of the community that they expected to happen whenever the original development was proposed. At first, I wasn't under the impression that there, were required basements or anything like that. Me personally, I prefer basements, so I'm here to say on the record that I commit to providing that as well, and of course abiding by the HOA bylaws as well. In addition to, I'm happy to have even further ongoing conversations with the neighborhood as far as, textures, colors, things like that, of course, and then, expressing any sort of limitations that we have on our end from a development standpoint. And then also something that I wanted to make known was the price points and things like that too. The ones that we were looking at were in the upper 300s, possibly creeping into the 4s, potentially depending on the house. So we were wanting to provide a higher quality home for the area. I was I was unaware of the new house that was recently sold, that sold for $580,000. That is brand new news to me. So that's great, actually. I like to see that, like to hear it. I haven't seen it on any of the records that I have on the MLS or anything like that, but I'll be on the lookout for that. But that's definitely something that's intriguing to me, because then that allows us to push the envelope a little bit.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. And lastly, too, I have one of the best architectural firms of single family here in Kansas City, NSPJ. They do a lot of high-end homes. Actually, not too far from here, they've done multi-million-dollar homes in the west side. So that's who I'm working with on my side of things. And I also have a professional interior designer to pick out colors and fixtures that are tasteful and not just your standard builder grade quality that you'd see in built for rent. And then any of the built for rent that we have done in the past, they rent for $3,000 more a month. So it's higher quality, something that would otherwise sell for $500,000 or more. It just happens to be for rent, not for sale. So thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Barnes, I do want to apologize for calling you Mr. Walker. My apologies. I was looking at something, communication. So my apologies on that. Anyone else from the gallery that would like to speak to applications A11 through A15? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment portion. We'll go kind of application by application, just because, again, that was a lot of information that we received. Does anybody have questions? I know I saw Commissioner Bynum had her hand up, and then Commissioner Townsend. Commissioner Townsend, let's start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was trying to get to you before you close the public comment, because I did want to hear from former Commissioner Barnes. He referred to a declaration of some type, so I wanted clarity on what that was. Are you talking about the homeowners, the HOA's policy, or what declaration were you referring to?
Well, when this development started, it was required by the developer to issue a declaration And I didn't quite understand why the declaration's in place. And I feel very comfortable with the declaration. It talks about no fences. It is pretty detailed. And if anybody would come in and follow those declarations, I'd feel comfortable with it. But now, it's like the declarations are a moot point. They're coming in doing anything they want to do and building any kind of house at any kind of price point. It even changed from when I was in office and this declaration was accepted, it was 1,600 square feet minimum. Now it's down to 1,548. I don't know how that changed. I don't know when it changed, how it changed. And so the declaration is nothing. And then we come last month and they tell us that the homeowners everything is on the homeowners association. We've got to enforce it. I don't mind doing that. Thanks for telling me. I got an attorney, he's working on it. We're going to put that together. So that's where we are right now is revisiting the bylaws of the homeowners association and in combination with the declaration that's already in place. The only thing that I got stuck on with the attorney was maybe we need to spell it out. No basements. I mean, you have to have basements rather than build a slab. And what Mr. Murray said earlier is that I've invested a lifetime into this house, into my house. You don't understand that. I guess you guys are not realizing I don't plan to move anywhere else until I have to go to a nursing home or something. So I plan to be there for a minute. And for you to come in and say, oh, I'm gonna let somebody put a slab in, and I've invested all this money into my house, on my property, that's not fair. So we need to back up and reset. And I agree with what Ms. Eleonora said. This could be a lesson for both of us on how to go about doing this. When this property was started, it was nothing there, nothing but junk. And now we've transformed it. And now we want to screw it up again. I just want to avoid that from happening. And I think we need to put a pause on things until we can say, what would be the best way to address this? Thank you, Gail.
Thank you. I'm still confused as to what the declaration is. So if it's not incorporated in the HOA, I would love for us to have a copy of it to see what could be amended or what it is. I'm still not understanding what that is.
Well, the declaration states what you can and cannot do within.
And where did that come from? Did that come from the developer or?
Reverse behind me, he can tell you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, please.
Please.
Oh, just make sure you're speaking into the phone.
Chief Economic Development Advisor. The homeowner declaration was created when Peregrine was started. It lists all of the development requirements of builders within the subdivision. It was filed, and I didn't bring a copy of it with me, but it was filed some time ago with the Register of Deeds. I don't know if you have your copy, Jed. I did provide a copy of that to Jed some time ago. But it's a declaration of restrictions for the Peregrine Falcon subdivision, listing all of the requirements of the subdivision.
Thank you. So is that a part or in addition to the HOA?
It requires that an HOA be set up. Typically, the way it works is, and this is fairly standard throughout the housing industry, subdivisions, a developer will go in, establish the homeowner declaration of restrictions, and will act as the board, if you will, during the construction of that subdivision. At some point in time, the developer will turn that over to the homeowners association. Typically, it's when it's 70, 80% built out. But then it becomes the responsibility of the homeowner declaration to maintain that declaration of restrictions. Unfortunately for Peregrine, and that's why they were late in setting up the homeowners association, a number of things took place that slowed the progress in Peregrine. I know earlier it was mentioned the Wyandotte Nation lawsuit that retarded development at the time. Everything stopped. And things were slow to start, but that's why, one of the reasons why Peregrine was retarded and why that homeowners association is late in getting set up.
Okay, again, though, are these declarations now part of the homeowners association, or is this a different document?
It's
That's
part
all
of,
I'm asking.
it's part of Peregrine Falcon, and it is also a part of the homeowners association.
Okay, so is it still effective so that anyone who would seek to build in Peregrine Falcon is obligated to follow what the details contained in the declaration specify?
It is, and I should point out, and maybe that's some of the frustration cited by some of the Peregrine residents. Typically, the city, when the city enforces general code requirements, it's the city codes officer's responsibility and the chief building official to make sure those requirements are met. For subdivisions with homeowners associations, it's generally the requirement of the homeowner association to make certain that those requirements are met. That's why members of that association met with Mr. Johnston to try to get to a point where it's enforced by both parties.
So it sounds like at some point in the development process, what would have been monitored by the city is now the responsibility under the HOA of the homeowners group. Okay.
In this instance, yes, because when this project started, and it started under a TIF, so we put together a TIF,
Mm-hmm.
Peregrine as well. And the city held some responsibility in maintaining the requirements of that. And so at that point, the city was enforcing all of that. Since the TIF, I think expired January of 2025. And thus the homeowners association will need to take over.
Mm-hmm.
This is when agreeing with legal. The things that are set out in that homeowner declarations, the HOA requirements, those are not things that are code enforcement obligations to enforce. Things about if your lot is on a corner, it should not have a fence. That is not a code those are not violations of our code. So our code enforcement would not enforce those types of things. I previously emailed these declarations to members of this committee, and I can email it to you again, Commissioner Townsend, if you didn't get that. I have no problem doing that, so I'll make sure I get that to you tomorrow. But it is a recorded document that it was recorded quite a while ago that is still in force, but it is a requirement that the HOA enforce that document and the requirements of that document. The city cannot enforce that document because the requirements within it are not violations of code.
Okay.
So that's why the city cannot enforce it.
And that's a major distinction that you just
Correct.
point out. So if it's a violation of a code, the city does have jurisdiction come in and
Absolutely.
deal with that.
Absolutely.
I disagree with that. That's the
Sir, public comment has ended. But Commissioner Townsend, do you have other questions for folks in the gallery?
Can I say this as I close out? I believe some of these requirements were stipulated on the plat for Peregrine, and I'll double check that. because
Please do.
it's a plat.
That would be a different, yeah, that would be a different situation because we do vote on plats. So yes, do give us that. But Commissioner Townsend, did you have more questions for folks or just general comments?
Well, a little bit of both. As council has said, if there's a city code violation, a city code, then the city can come in and enforce that. I know you may disagree, but that's the legal thing. So I would be interested, since what's coming out to me is unlike when Mr. Hughes was the single developer and you had some guarantee that everything at Peregrine Falcon was going to be of the same standard, same look. That is not what we've got now. And I don't know why this has become hot all of a sudden. We do want to see development in the Northeast area. So to the within the constraints of trying to make sure that people who want to build there now do so in concert with your HOA. I would be supportive of that. Now, from Mr. Judd's introduction previously, I was getting the impression that a lot of these were holdovers from last month, that the neighborhood group had met and things were okay. But now I'm hearing they apparently or not, okay? And I can understand, I think what your concern is, that you have multiple individuals, multiple builders seeking these plots, and they may not all be the same. I do not necessarily disagree that everybody, or agree that everybody who comes in has to spend $500,000. That's what that developer did. And I would think there are developers who could do great jobs that would be suitable with the investments you've already made that may not be as big as that particular one. So that's another issue altogether. But I'll let other people talk. But before former commissioner left, Nathan left, I wanted him to hear that and have the response. And no, not response, but just the opportunity to ask that question for clarification. And again, to give him a heads up, as I stated last month, that I am aware and appreciate your concerns with what you've done there. You all have held, you and Mr. Young and several others have made initial investments there, and I think it would be appropriate to expect that others that come in build accordingly, not necessarily identically, but within what the HOA states. So thank you. I'm going to yield because other commissioners may have a thought.
Thank you, Commissioner Townsend. I know Commissioner Bynum and Hill have been waiting, and thank you all in the gallery for your patience as we work through this. Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you, Chair. I have a number of questions and a request, if you will. So first of all, I just am very happy to hear that the HOA has retained counsel. That's a major step. I want to state I have no issue at all supporting a moratorium on any and all Peregrine lots until we can meet as a larger group, staff, and us, perhaps the commissioners that were suggested, and the neighbors, to see what needs to be done policy-wise or addendum-wise to address the concerns that the neighborhood has shared. I would add to that preference is certainly a notion that we should put on the table and discuss. And Mr. Barnes said back up and reset, and I'm good with that. So I wanted to put that out there, but I wanted to ask staff, I don't know how much of a recap you could provide for us tonight in terms of the history of the neighborhood and the origination of the TIF and the development in general. That might be a good refresher for the larger group meeting, which I, again, do support. It was a TIF. How many lots were there? I thought I heard Judd say that these applications represented the end of the availability of the lots in that neighborhood. So I would want to make sure I confirm that I heard that correctly. And Mr. Chair, that is all I have. If we end up considering A15 as a singular item, I do have a question.
Okay.
But other than that, I can yield.
Okay. Right now we're on A11, and so I wanted to at the very least make sure everybody has a chance to offer their thoughts and comments and questions, and then I'll kind of chart a pathway forward with different options for us to consider legislatively.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Commissioner Hill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to those who are from the community, and thank you for sharing your concerns. This is Evelyn Hill Commission 4. I would like to say I also am in favor of making sure that those that build in Peregrine Falcon would abide by the HOA that has been established. I'm glad for council being back in place, and that the covenants can be assured that the neighbors in that neighborhood definitely are heard. But it needs to go beyond just being heard. We actually need to make sure that our team also is following these HOA requirements. I want to say thank you again to Commissioner Townsend for clearing up the declaration. And the declaration is supposed to solidify the HOA, from what I understand, or vice versa. But in any case, it sounds like our team needs to work to make sure that whoever builds in that area follows that HOA. And it sounds like the HOA wasn't in place at first, but now they're working to make sure those things are lining up. One of my questions is for our staff is, why were we considering development at a price point that was substantially lower than what the other housing units were in Peregrine Falcon? Mr. Judd, could you explain that to me, please?
Yes, Commissioner. When I in the online application, I ask everyone what's their estimated sale price, and that's what they provided me. We did have a community meeting on November 25th, where 4 of the contractors were present. They talked about their price point was going to be like $250,000 for this area. During that meeting, the people that attended that meeting says no, the price should be around $315,000. The 4 applicants that were there agreed that they could increase the what they billed to $315,000.
Okay, thank you. So does that mean that the 315,000, is that still substantially lower than the housing product that's already there?
I would have to look at what the value of the current homes in that subdivision are.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. I just wanted to just establish kind of what is our price point when we go into neighborhoods, when the houses are at a particular price, a higher standard, then how can we make sure we're consistent with what's already built there? I think that's where I'm coming from. And I too, I know this is just 11. We got a couple more to go through, but I definitely am willing to hold back and kind of reset and reconsider what we can do differently, so that we can be consistent with the HOA that is in this neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I'm, perusing through what council has sent us the HOA for Peregrine Falcon, looking at it right now, and would encourage members of this committee to also look at it as well. That way we can actually see what is in the document and just make sure that we have that information. Okay, so can we put the applications on the screen? Just wanted to make sure that folks are able to see that. Okay, so right now we are on A11. We have a variety of options here. I know some of you have said, let's go ahead and put a hold on the Peregrine Falcon area. Obviously, that would take a more formal act where we would identify all of those parcels, and then we would make a vote. That's not currently what's on the agenda or what staff has prepared. However, if that is something that you all want, I would absolutely prepare it, and we, we'll work with staff and make it happen. So there's that desire for a hold, and then we have these individual applications for different sections. We can hold it over for 30 days, which we've done before. We could also deny the applications outright. You all can, there could be a vote to deny. There could also be just no action taken, which would effectively deny all of those particular applications. And so there are multiple options in how we would go about doing this. I just wanted to make that information aware to you all. Commissioner Townsend, did you have something? And then Commissioner Bynum afterwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a couple of questions for council based on what we've heard tonight. And for clarification, with 11, please tell me, Mr. Judd, what of these between 11A and 1115 are in the Peregrine Falcon subdivision?
You mean A1 and A11, A15, Commissioner?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. A11 through A15, which one of these are Peregrine Falcon?
A14 is outside of the first plat of Peregrine Falcon.
So
But A14 is also in the development plan of Peregrine Falcon that never got replatted. So we heard that Peregrine Falcon was in 3 or 4 phases. Phase 1 got replatted. But then A14 is outside of that phase 1.
let me restate another way then. What we know as Peregrine Falcon with the boundaries, I guess, on the west side would be 7th Street. On the east side would be 5th Street. I don't know what the most southern boundary is. Bob? No. I don't think it goes all the way to Quindaro, I didn't think. Quindaro? Yeah, okay, I'm not talking about faces, but where the trees are, what people commonly look at as Peregrine Falcon right now, regardless of the phases. So would A14 fall within that common view of what's now considered Peregrine Falcon? That's outside of Peregrine Falcon. Is that correct?
Mr. Knapp.
A14.
Hold on. For the gallery, Mr. Knapp or staff, somebody, if not, then Mr. Murray can come and answer, but do we have an answer?
Peregrine Falcon phase 1 was replatted. So what I see as Peregrine Falcon is that plat of phase 1. And it would not include A14 because it's north of that. And the HOA is just for plat one, the phase one. So the Peregrine. So A14 is outside of the HOA.
So you're saying currently A14 is outside of the HOA boundaries?
Yes, Commissioner.
Right. But so it's not Peregrine Falcon? Are these the homes that are just to, or the lots that are just to the east on Fifth Street across from Garland Park?
Yes, they are. They are actually west of Garland Park.
I'm sorry, yeah, west of Garland Park. Okay, as you go down toward Boswell. Okay. Okay. But A11 is that included in what's commonly known as Peregrine Falcon, the area we're talking about? 2609 North Howlett?
Yes, Commissioner.
Okay, so that's Peregrine. And what about 12? A12?
12 is in the first plat, a Peregrine Falcon, yes.
That's Peregrine. What about 13? A13?
The same.
Peregrine Falcon. Okay, we've established the 14 is not, that's across from Garland. Okay,
And then A15 is inside.
that is inside Peregrine Falcon. Okay. Mr. Chair, what was the recommendation, Mr. Knapp, for those items in A14 that you heard from the neighborhood groups? Did they comment on A14?
Did. It's the same. They were requesting that the homes have a basement. They follow the HOA covenant. That was it.
Okay, they requested it, but it sounds like since it's outside of Peregrine, they wouldn't be obligated to do that. Would that be correct? I'm going to ask for counsels.
This is when agreeing with the legal department. That's correct. If they are outside of the phase one Peregrine Falcon plat that is not subject to the HOA declarations, then they are not required to follow those HOA declarations civilly.
Okay, we keep talking about the phase one. Was there any intention at any time for those items to be a part of Peregrine Falcon? We
Ye-
may have
Yes. and I
someone who
know
could
Commissioner
respond to that.
Bynum has been patiently waiting. Mr. Murray, if you want to go ahead and share some of your expertise that may help us out in the conversation,
Yeah,
if that's all right with you, Commissioner Townsend.
yeah, yes,
go
please
for it,
do.
Say, due to economics, phase one was established in that area proper where you see the new homes.
Mhm.
But the Peregrine Falcon redevelopment area included everything from 7th to 5th with the exclusion of McGrew Grove. That's the only area that was taken out. And that was taken out because the neighborhood community requested it. Otherwise, everything within those boundaries were to be phased as a part of Peregrine Falcon.
Okay, so it would be reasonable to expect that the homeowners would also be concerned about how these looked. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Okay. One last question for council. If these land bank lots were to be awarded, what, if any, legal authority would the UG have to make the builders comply with the HOA?
We would have to have a separate document with them.
Mhm.
And I have cautioned before with having an agreement with based upon a third-party document. that gets very, very sticky and it's hard to enforce.
Okay.
They would still have to be bound by it, again, especially now knowing that the HOA has gotten an attorney. They are probably in a better position to enforce their own declarations
Mm-hmm.
at this point. So the declarations are very much still enforceable.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we would, the land bank is putting anybody that buys lots in that area on notice that those declarations are out there, they're recorded, and they can be enforced. So anybody that buys a lot from the land bank in that area is still subject to those declarations.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor. And as I was asking the question, I was visualizing that the real concern here is not just bad fence, bad whatever, but it's how the whole community looks. So I get it. I would be in favor of, I don't know, most of these are holdovers from last month to give the neighborhood groups and those individuals, residents in Peregrine Falcon, the opportunity to talk to the builders. But it sounds like the bigger concern of the homeowners and the neighborhood groups is how that entire area looks. So I would be in favor of declining these. I don't think holding them over is going to give us time in a month to resolve that and to talk with the administrator. Mr. Judd's done his job because that's land bank policy. But if the desire is to maybe try to find one or two developers, who would have more of the vision or that we can talk to about it and treat this a little bit differently than just a single home. I'm at a loss to explain why Mosaic hasn't come forward and requested more. So I wouldn't, put all my eggs in one basket. Happy if you like what they've done, but there may be reasons they haven't come and asked for more. Nevertheless, I think it would be better to probably say no to these and just take some time and address Peregrine Falcon as a separate project for the time being. I'm not saying take them out of our land bank because that's what they are. And those who are there have held it down since about 2009 is when I remember, somewhere around that time, this first coming up. And then there were economic ups and downs beyond the control of any of us and the developer. So maybe this should be looked at, Peregrine Falcon, as more project. We may get, one person or two builders, may not get any, and we may be back to that. But I would be in favor of at least attempting that to see if it could be put as a project and we have one or two developers, if they're interested, and have a more consistent plan for the homes. Thank you, my fellow commissioners, for waiting, but since it's my district, I'm going to take that time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know Commissioners Bynum and Hill have been waiting. So I do want us to land here. Was that a motion that you were making, or was that just kind of a thought that you were putting out there to deny all of the applications so that we can go back to drawing board? And make sure your mic is on, Commissioner.
Yeah, it was my attempt to get a better understanding of what's wanted here, where we can go from here, but I can make it a motion. That's why I was asking which of these items in A11 through 15 were Peregrine Falcon or not. And it appears all of them are. So my motion would be to currently deny items A11, 12, 13, 14, 15. But with the plan to go forward and well, that's the motion, so it's up or down. But with the bigger plan to address Peregrine Falcon separately, but the motion is simply to deny these applications for this time, A11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Hold that motion, but I wanted to make sure that motion was made so that we can keep this moving forward. Commissioner Bynum, I think I saw you first, and then Commissioner Hill.
Thank you. I actually appreciate Commissioner Townsend's deliberation and careful, thinking about this whole thing. I think my hangup with the denial is probably in the technicalities that Judd and Ms. Green would have to explain to me to make sure I could have a comfort level with the denial motion. But I think that I'm trying to achieve the same result because I very much support the second part after the motion where Commissioner, talked about the taking the step back to relook at this whole situation specifically with Peregrine and how to align that with our policy if that's what we need to do. I'm all in favor of that. So I guess, Chair, my technicality is how we do it. But I would need an explanation from staff of what does a denial create for these applicants? Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Hill, I'm going to go to you momentarily, but counsel, if you can just walk us through legislatively what the impact is of a denial for these applicants.
Right, so the denial doesn't mean they can never come back. Right. I mean, they can come back. It just, when they come back, that's really on them.
Gotcha. But it's not like, as Commissioner Davis, it's not like a planning and zoning situation where
Where they have to wait a year.
you have to wait a year if you're requesting a change of zone or something like that. Okay, so
Correct.
it's not so detrimental because I appreciate this conversation. It's been very, very educational, and I think it's helping us get somewhere. But we also do not want to discourage the developers that are wanting to build within our community. So while a Peregrine Falcon fit right now is just currently not what's sense where we are leaning towards as a committee, I do not want any of those developers or applicants to think that we do not want them to build here in Wyandotte County, because we absolutely do. It may not be this particular area, but there are certainly other areas in our community that we can find the right fit, because we do need that infill development. Commissioner Hill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to say thank you to the staff. I know this has been a little bit tedious, and thank you again to the neighborhood that has brought forth these concerns and the developers. We certainly do need housing, so we definitely don't want to discourage developers for coming in and building in our community. I have a couple of things I'd like to say. Number one, I have not looked at the HOA that our chair has encouraged us to look at. However, I would like to check with council, is phases 2 or 3 also a part of that HOA, or can that be included as part of the HOA as this neighborhood moves forward? Ms. Green?
Commissioner Hill, can you restate the question?
Oh, okay. That's okay. I'm sorry, I confused everybody.
Sorry.
I apologize. Okay. the HOA as it is now does it include phases 2 or 3 or however many phases is out there for Peregrine Falcon?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so as my understanding, and I can look at this just to make sure, but it's my understanding that the HOA declarations and restrictions only include phase 1. So if it were to want to include the other phases as they are platted, they would have to go back and amend their HOA declaration and re-record it.
Okay. And that's the only way they would have power to pretty much have say-so in who gets to build in phases 2 or 3 or whatever other phases, correct?
Correct, but first those phases would actually have to be platted correctly. And I don't know if I don't believe that has been done yet. I know phase 1 has been platted. I'm not sure if phase 2 or 3 have ever been platted. But I don't know that they exist formally as of right now. They do not exist in the eyes of the official Peregrine Falcon HOA. So that would have to be done first. But they're, like they were saying, they do have an attorney, so their attorney could definitely assist them with all that.
Okay. Ms. Green, I hate to keep bugging you. One more quick
That's
question.
okay. That's why I'm here.
I think, thank you so much, Commissioner Townsend, for your questioning in regards again to the declaration and the HOA. In A14, I think those lots were outside of the subdivision. So I'm trying to get clarity on, since it's outside the subdivision, it's already plotted. Should there be, or could these lots be included in the present AOA, or do they need to be extended to be a part of the HOA?
Correct. So the lots that are referenced in A14 are not in phase 1 of Peregrine Falcon as it was platted. So they are not included in the HOA currently. So there would be a lot that would have to be done. First of all, it was the developer that platted it and included phase 1 in that. And this would be a completely different developer. So this developer would also have to agree to be part of all of that. So the HOA couldn't, on its own, take in more and more land to be included in its restrictions. Any developer or owner of the land that was not already part of it would have to then agree to become part of it, if that makes sense. Like anybody that buys land now that's already part and subject to the HOA takes it as it is, because they are already on notice that the land that they are buying is subject to these HOA declarations. But if a part of what is Peregrine Falcon that is not already in phase 1 if the HOA wants it to become part of that, whoever buys that land and develops it would have to agree for it to become part of the HOA.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then I think the other thing I'd like to mention is, I know Miss Eleanor has mentioned on several occasions that maybe there needs to be land bank parcel-like development plan, and that might really help us a little bit better as we move forward. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so if there are no other hands, I wasn't sure. Commissioner Bynum, your little square went away as far as the screen that I'm looking at, but did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Just a thought. if we deny tonight, any and all, every applicant can come back immediately and basically apply again. And so potentially that puts them on another upcoming agenda where we don't have any resolution for them yet. But it also does keep that applicant sort of top of mind, if you will. So we could do that, or we could just basically hold everything, like freeze it and leave these applications in place while we deliberate. So, but I'm willing to go either way. I'll just put it that way. But I just kind of wanted to share a little thought on process. Thanks.
Understood. Was there anything else you had, Commissioner Bynum?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So here's where what I'm hearing. So there was a motion made for the denial for applications A11 through A15. I'll go ahead and second that motion. That way this thing can get moving. Because this is such a unique situation, what I'll also do is put before you all as a committee I'll hold on the Peregrine Falcon area. We can decide, the new policy speaks to holds are allowed. We can decide on what the tenets of that hold will be, what we want to be accomplished. And then if we want a timeline on it, that hold for the Peregrine Falcon area will then signal to our staff to remove those applications, or not applications, remove those particular parcels off the website. That way we don't have Judd and our staff spending time on applications that we know will probably be denied. Okay, there is a motion made by Commissioner Townsend and a second from myself to deny applications A11 through A15. To those developers, again, thank you for interest in our community. While this area does not work because of these concerns from our community, there are other areas that we would encourage you all to look at. To our community and folks in the gallery, thank you all so much for your patience. Clerk, can we get the roll?
Roll call. Hill.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. And Mr. Knapp, if you could just make note of that, I'll bring it up during agenda review, but we'll just take all of the parcels in Peregrine Falcon from 7th to 5th. We'll just put them all on a hold, and then we'll leave it up to my colleagues in that February 3rd meeting to kind of decide kind of what timeline we want to put on that hold. Okay. We have our last item of the night, C2, which is 1708 Quindaro Boulevard. Mr. Knapp.
C2 is, it's a commercial building. It's going to be a art and business resource center. They want a dedicated space for artists and entrepreneurs to work together, and they can rent workspaces. I did bring up that the Boston Daniels Art Center was just down the road, but this applicant came with the applicant from Boston Daniels Art Center. So they are in this, they aren't together, but they definitely know about each project. So that's that item, Commissioner.
Okay. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and do public comment. Clerk, were there any comments for C2, 1708 Quindaro Boulevard?
No comments were received.
Any hands raised online?
We have one hand raised online. Candy Leonard Caldwell.
Okay. Ms. Caldwell, if you can state your name, city of residence, you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you for your patience.
Good evening, Candy Leonard Caldwell, resident of Kansas City, Kansas, and president of Organization for Community Preservation, OCP. I believe I put in comments in the little deal that is submitted by Judd, but OCP would be in opposition of this venture until the parties meet with our organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Caldwell. And do want to note that is kind of part of the policy that we adopted, that every applicant would make every effort. And so do we have any other folks online, the applicant online by any chance?
There are no other hands raised.
Okay, cool. Okay, for the folks that are here in the gallery, again, thank you all for your patience. Would anyone like to speak to this application, C2 1708 Quindaro Boulevard? Please come forward, state your name, city of residence. You'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Crystal Tucker. I'm a Kansas City, Kansas resident. I'm the CEO of Art Unity Network, and I just want to build more spaces that we can have more accessibility in, grocery stores, local retail. A lot of people have small businesses from home, and my goal is to bring us back to brick and mortar establishment so that we can build our market value in our area. And it is very possible. Take it from Plex Plot, from Kansas City, Missouri, or Interurban Art House, things like that. We can have that established here, more accessible for our local residents. Thank you.
Ms. Tucker, do stay around because since you are the applicant, there might be some questions or some additional things that you may want to offer. So do just stay nearby. You don't have to keep standing at the podium. Just stand by. Are there any other folks that would like to provide a comment for this application? Okay, I'll go ahead and close public comment, but again, Ms. Tucker, if there are questions, please do not hesitate to approach the podium. Okay, colleagues, any questions or comments on this particular item? Yes, Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you. President Caldwell of the OCD Neighborhood Group apparently has not met with Ms. Tucker or other representatives, so I would move that this item be held over to the next month. I understand we have to do this month by month, so I would recommend that the applicant make sure she gets in touch with the president of the OCP group. I'd be happy to give you contact information tonight. This is something that we encourage with all the applicants, people in your position. I'll also note that that area, there's a lot of interest with housing there. So could I ask the applicant to come?
Yes,
forward
please,
for
Ms.
one
Tucker. Yes,
quick
please.
question, since this has come up. Ms. Tucker, are you related in any way, your project, to the park at 7th and Quindaro?
Boston
The
Daniels.
Boston Daniels Park, or that activity that is planned there?
We are partners. My goal is to partner with organizations locally, so I have not met with OCP at all, but I have seen like signs in regards to them, but I haven't met them in person, so I have no problem in doing so. That's the way that the business is run, through community engagement. So I would love to have a meeting with those who want to be involved for sure. But I am partnered with the Boston Daniels Corporation. We're currently working on a gardening project, help a neighbor build a garden for Quindaro Boulevard so that we can have more fresh produce in the area alongside with some local community gardens.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll be happy to meet with you after and give you contact information. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Knapp.
I was looking at it. OCP's neighborhood group, this is outside of their neighborhood group. So that's probably why they didn't get notified of this project.
It's outside of the boundary.
It's like touching the boundary, but it's outside of it.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I think from I'm pretty sure I can speak for the committee. We would still prefer that Ms. Tucker meet with Ms. Caldwell. Ms. Tucker, we'll give you that information so that next month in February, you can come back and hopefully get approved for your application again. Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Caldwell, for letting us know about the communication. Okay, there was a motion, correct? Was there a motion to hold over? Okay, I'll go ahead and second that motion. Clerk, can we get the roll?
Roll call, Hill,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay, thank you so much. And then I'll just say for staff, just to reiterate, for our February 3rd meeting, if we can have a hold for all of the Peregrine Falcon parcels, that would be great. That way we can go ahead and give some clear direction. All right, we are done for the night. Thank you all so much. Please be safe getting home. We really appreciate your patience and your insight. I'll go ahead and move to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, clerk, can we get the roll?
Roll call, Hill,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
motion carries.
All right. Thank you, everyone. See you February 3rd.
Commissioner?